The Stargate on P3X-774 hadn't activated in 3 years. The farming colonists, descendants of humans taken by RA millennia ago, had learned to ignore the great ring standing in their central plaza, its chevrons dark and silent, a monument to gods who no longer answered prayers. They tended their crops beneath a yellow sun, raised their children in simple homes, and told stories of ancestors who came through the stone circle from a place called Earth. Then one morning, the ring screamed to life. Chevrons locked with mechanical precision. 1, 2, 3. The familiar sequence that existed in cultural memory but hadn't manifested in living experience. 4, 5, 6. The seventh chevron slammed home, and the wormhole erupted outward in an explosion of shimmering energy before stabilizing into that impossible vertical pool of liquid light. But nothing came through. No Jaffa warriors. No cargo. No visitors from distant worlds. The gate simply waited, its event horizon rippling with patient menace. Until something struck it from the other side. The impact sent concentric waves across the wormhole's surface. Then again, harder. A third collision, and a small object punched through the event horizon at impossible velocity, trailing fire and sparking energy. The escape pod, no larger than a harvest basket, screamed across the plaza, its trajectory failing, systems dying. It struck the earth beyond the village with force enough to shake foundations and crack stone. By the time the colonists reached the crater, the Stargate had shut down behind them. By the time they pried open the pod seal, they found an infant boy wrapped in a red blanket, crying beneath a symbol they couldn't read. A diamond. A shield. An S. They named him Clark, after the Elder's grandfather. Raised him as their own. Watched him grow strong in ways that defied understanding. 20 Earth years later. SG-1 stepped through the Stargate onto P3X-774 with standard caution, P90S ready. MALP data reviewed, GDO codes confirmed. Colonel Jack O'Neill scanned the plaza with practiced efficiency while Major Samantha Carter checked her readings and Daniel Jackson consulted his notes on the planet's linguistic profile. TLC, as always, simply observed with the patient wariness of a Jaffa who'd learned to trust nothing. Looks peaceful, O'Neill muttered. I don't trust peaceful. The MALP showed an agricultural settlement, no gold technology signatures, Carter reported. Population approximately 200, pre-industrial development level. Great. A milk run. Jack's tone suggested he expected anything but. Daniel was already moving toward the village visible beyond the plaza. According to the ancient database, this was one of Ra's colony worlds. The inhabitants should speak a dialect of ancient Egyptian mixed with. He stopped. They all stopped. A man stood in the center of the plaza, perhaps 30 yards away. Mid-20s, dark hair, flannel shirt over a simple tunic that marked him as local. He'd appeared so suddenly that even TLC's enhanced reflexes hadn't caught the approach. Hello, the man said in perfect, unaccented English. I'm Clark Kent. Welcome to our world. 4 weapons tracked toward him in synchronized military precision. The stranger didn't flinch, didn't reach for a weapon, didn't move at all. He simply stood with his hands visible, a slight smile on his face that suggested he understood their caution and didn't blame them for it. Daniel? O'Neill's voice carried that particular edge that meant, explain this now. I don't know how he speaks English. Daniel stepped forward cautiously, sliding his weapon back to ready position. Hello. I'm Dr. Daniel Jackson. We're from Earth. Through the Stargate. We come in peace. I know, Clark said. I've been waiting a long time for someone to come through that gate. I have questions. About where I'm from. About what I am. Carter's scanner beeped insistently. She glanced down, frowned, adjusted the settings, scanned again. Sir, I'm getting some unusual readings. Massive energy signature, but it's biological, not technological. It's coming from him. TLC finished, his staff weapon still trained but his expression showing the first flicker of uncertainty O'Neill had seen from the Jaffa in months. Clark took a slow breath. I should probably explain. And show you something. If you'll trust me for just a moment. He gestured toward the crater visible beyond the village. That's where I arrived. 20 years ago, through your Stargate. In a ship that wasn't built by any hands in this galaxy. A ship? Daniel's academic curiosity warred visibly with his tactical awareness. Like, an escape pod. From where? I don't know. That's what I'm hoping you can help me understand. Clark's expression carried genuine vulnerability beneath the small-town earnestness. But first, I need you to know what you're dealing with. What I can do. Because if we're going to work together, if Earth is going to trust me, you deserve the truth. He bent down, placed both hands beneath a stone obelisk that had stood in the plaza for 1,000 years, and lifted. The monument, easily 20 tons of solid granite, rose into the air like it weighed nothing. Clark held it overhead with one hand while the other gestured apologetically. I'm stronger than I should be. Faster, too. And I can do this. He set the obelisk down gently, then rose 6 inches off the ground. Hovering. Flying. Which I realize looks exactly like what a Goa'uld might do with a ribbon device or anti-gravity technology, but I promise it's not. It's just, me. What I am. 4 weapons remained trained on him, but O'Neill's tactical assessment had already shifted from potential threat to impossible problem requiring immediate evaluation and probably giving me a headache. He'd seen Goa'uld tricks. This felt different. This felt real. Carter, Jack said slowly, not lowering his P90. Tell me your scanner's malfunctioning. No malfunction, sir. Her voice carried scientific fascination competing with military protocol. He's generating that energy internally. I've never seen anything like it. It's not Naquata-based, not ancient technology, not any power signature in our database. Clark lowered himself back to the ground, hands visible and non-threatening. I know this is a lot to process. Believe me, I've had 20 years to process it and I'm still figuring things out. But I've been waiting for someone from Earth to come through that gate because I need to understand where that pod came from. Why I can do these things. And, he met O'Neill's eyes directly, if there are others like me out there. TLC's staff weapon lowered fractionally. You were sent through the Chapa AI as an infant. By whom? I don't know. The pod's technology is, beyond anything this world has. Beyond anything I can understand. But maybe your scientists can. Clark's expression carried hope and uncertainty in equal measure. I'm not a threat to Earth. I just want answers. And maybe I can help. Your fight against the Goa'uld. I've heard the stories from other worlds through the Gate network. False gods enslaving humans. I can't just stand by if I can help stop that. Daniel had lowered his weapon entirely, his archaeologist's mind clearly racing through implications. The symbology on your pod, this S-shield you arrived with, it's not ancient, not Goa'uld, not any Earth culture I recognize. This could be evidence of another advanced race, another civilization we've never encountered. Or, O'Neill countered, it could be a very elaborate trap by someone who really wants access to Earth through our gate. But even as he said it, his instincts, honed through years of special ops and first contact situations that went sideways, told him this wasn't deception. This was genuine confusion. We're going to need to bring you back to the SGC. Let the docs check you out, run some tests, have a very long conversation with General Hammond about what exactly you are and whether you're going to be a problem. I understand. I expected as much. Clark nodded. But there's something you should know first. The reason these people trust me despite what I am. 3 months ago, a Goa'uld scout ship came to this world. Jaffa soldiers. They were looking for hosts, for slaves. I stopped them. Stopped them how? Carter asked. I flew up to their ship and brought it down. Carefully. No casualties among the Jaffa. I made sure they could evacuate first. But the ship won't be threatening anyone again. Clark's expression carried no pride, only fact. The Goa'uld know something's here now. Someone who can challenge them. If you take me back to Earth, you need to know that I might bring their attention with me. O'Neill exchanged glances with his team. Carter's scientific curiosity. Daniel's archaeological fascination. TLC's warrior assessment of a potential ally against the false gods. Yeah, Jack said finally. That's definitely something we're going to need to discuss with Hammond. And probably a lot of other people with stars on their shoulders. He gestured toward the Stargate. Carter, dial home. TLC, secure the perimeter. Daniel, start documenting everything about that pod. And you, he pointed at Clark, you're coming with us. Voluntarily. Peacefully. And if at any point this turns out to be some kind of trick, you're going to discover that Earth has ways of dealing with threats that don't rely on being able to lift heavy objects. Understood, Colonel. Clark smiled slightly. For what it's worth, I've spent 20 years being careful with this power. Being responsible. My parents here taught me that being different doesn't make you better. It makes you responsible. I'm not here to be a weapon. I'm here to help. And to finally understand where I came from. The Stargate roared to life behind them, chevrons locking in sequence. 7 symbols. Coordinates for Earth. The wormhole established with that familiar whoosh of displaced air and shimmering energy. As SG-1 prepared to step through with their impossible discovery, Clark Kent looked at the gate that had brought him to this world 2 decades ago. Finally, after all these years, he was going home. Or at least, to the world he should have reached as an infant. Through the Stargate. Into a universe where his power would be tested not against criminals in a single city, but against false gods who enslaved galaxies. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Indeed. The event horizon rippled with promise and threat in equal measure as Earth's flagship team prepared to bring something unprecedented back through the iris, a man who could fly, who spoke of rescue pods from unknown worlds, who might be humanity's greatest ally or most dangerous variable in a war fought across the stars. Colonel O'Neill radioed ahead to Stargate Command, Hammond, we're coming home. And we're bringing company. Very unusual company. You're going to want medical, science, and possibly a few more security teams standing by. Clark took a breath, straightened his shoulders beneath the flannel shirt that concealed impossible strength, and stepped toward the shimmering portal. The last son of Krypton was going to Earth. Just 20 years late. The iris spiraled open 3 seconds after SG-1's IDC transmitted through. Clark Kent stepped through the event horizon behind Colonel O'Neill and experienced something he'd only done once before as an infant, the sensation of being reduced to energy, transmitted across thousands of light years, and reconstructed on the other side. For a Kryptonian physiology powered by solar radiation and structured at the cellular level for impossible durability, the experience was disorienting. He emerged in the gate room of Stargate Command stumbling slightly, his enhanced senses momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer density of electromagnetic interference. Naquada radiation hummed through every surface. Computers, servers, power conduits, all of it creating a background noise his hearing had never encountered on a pre-industrial world. And beneath it all, something else. A resonance in the Stargate itself that seemed to echo in his cells like a tuning fork struck against his molecular structure. Easy there. O'Neill's hand steadied his shoulder, a gesture more automatic courtesy than tactical necessity. Gate travel hit some people harder than others. You'll adjust. I'm fine, Clark managed, straightening. Just, a lot of new input. He looked up at the control room where personnel stared down through reinforced glass. 20 P-90s were trained on him from strategic positions around the gate room. A woman with red hair and Major's insignia watched from beside an older man whose bearing screamed command authority even through the observation window. SG-1, stand down from the gate. The voice came through speakers with crisp military authority. Dr. Fraser, you're clear to approach. A petite woman with captain's bars and a medical kit descended the ramp with cautious confidence. She had the look of someone who treated everything from alien parasites to radiation poisoning and wouldn't be easily rattled. I'm Dr. Janet Fraser, Chief Medical Officer, she said, approaching Clark with her scanner already active. I'm going to need to run some preliminary tests before we can clear you past the gate room. Standard procedure for all off-world visitors. Of course. Clark held still as the scanner passed over him. He could hear its internal mechanisms, could see through the casing to the delicate circuitry inside, one of many abilities he'd learned to keep private. I understand the precaution. Fraser's expression shifted from professional assessment to confusion. That's... Colonel Carter, could you verify these readings? Carter had already moved to Fraser's side, her own scanner active. Confirmed. Body temperature 40 degrees above human normal, but he's not feverish. Heart rate, sir, his heart is beating approximately 30 times per minute. That should be physiologically impossible for someone conscious and mobile. It's always been like that, Clark offered quietly. Ever since I can remember. My adopted parents thought I was sick until they realized I was just different. Different is an understatement. Fraser adjusted her scanner's settings. I'm reading bone density approximately 15 times human standard. Muscle tissue that shouldn't exist based on any terrestrial biology. And some kind of energy absorption occurring at the cellular level that I can't even classify. She looked up at Clark with a mixture of medical fascination and concern. Mr. Kent, whatever you are, you're not human. Not genetically. I know. Clark met her eyes steadily. That's why I need your help. To understand what I am. General Hammond's voice cut through the gate room. SG-1, Dr. Fraser, escort our guest to isolation room 3. Full security protocol. Mr. Kent, I'm General George Hammond, commander of this facility. You'll forgive the caution, but in our experience, impossible things walking through that gate tend to explode, try to take over the world, or turn out to be evil aliens in disguise. Usually in that order, O'Neill added helpfully. Clark couldn't help a slight smile despite 20 weapons still tracking his movement. I understand, General. I've spent 20 years being careful around people who couldn't survive a handshake if I wasn't paying attention. I'm used to caution. The isolation room turned out to be a reinforced cell with observation windows, medical equipment, and enough armed guards to make the security posture clear. Clark sat on the examination table without protest while Dr. Fraser began a more thorough assessment. I'm going to need blood samples, she said. Though given what these scanners are telling me, I'm not sure standard needles will work. They won't. Clark had learned that lesson the hard way at age 7 when a farming accident should have killed him and instead broke every medical implement his parents tried to use. I can, if you have a scalpel, I can apply enough pressure to break the skin. Briefly. It heals fast. Fraser's eyebrows rose. You're telling me you can control your own invulnerability? More like I can concentrate hard enough to let something through. It takes focus. Clark accepted the scalpel, pressed the blade against his forearm with deliberate force, and felt the familiar resistance before his cells reluctantly parted. Blood welled, darker red than human, more viscous. Fraser collected 3 vials before the wound sealed itself in under 5 seconds. Incredible, she breathed. Cellular regeneration at speeds that should require massive energy input. Where is that energy coming from? The sun, I think. Clark glanced toward the ceiling, toward the solar radiation he could feel even through layers of reinforced concrete and mountain. I'm stronger during the day. Weaker at night, though still far beyond human normal. It's like I absorb solar energy and it powers everything I am. In the observation room, Hammond stood with SG-1 watching the examination through one-way glass. TLC's expression carried contemplation. He does not present as Goa'uld, the Jaffa said. No Naquadah in his blood. No symbiote. And his abilities manifest without technological aid. Which means what? Hammond asked. Ancient. Some other race we haven't encountered. Carter studied her tablet, comparing readings. The energy signature is completely unique, sir. Not ancient, not Asgard, not any form of technology one can identify. It's biological. Evolved or engineered, I can't say yet. But whatever he is, he represents a form of life we've never documented. Daniel was examining images of the escape pod SG-1 had recovered, his archaeologist's focus locked on the symbology. This writing system predates anything in our database. The material composition is general. This wasn't built with any technology we understand. Not Goa'uld, not ancient. This is something else entirely. Another civilization. Maybe one that predates even the ancients. So we've got an alien with superpowers, unknown origin, and a convenient story about wanting to help. O'Neill's skepticism was professional, not personal. Anyone else seeing the potential for disaster here? I am also seeing the potential for unprecedented advantage against the Goa'uld, TLC countered. A warrior immune to staff weapons, capable of flight without technology, strong enough to disable Hatak vessels. If Clark Kent is genuine in his offer of alliance, he could shift the balance of power in this galaxy. That's what worries me. O'Neill watched through the glass as Clark cooperated with every test, every question, every procedure with patient courtesy. Power like that? The Goa'uld will want him. As a host, as a weapon, or dead so nobody else can have him. And we just painted a target on Earth by bringing him here. Hammond's expression carried the weight of command decisions that affected worlds. We've faced bigger threats than one powerful individual. The question is whether he's an asset or a liability. Major Carter, how long until you can analyze his biology and that pod's technology? Days at minimum for preliminary results, sir. Possibly weeks for comprehensive analysis. His cellular structure alone is beyond anything I've encountered. And the pod's power source is still partially active despite 2 decades without maintenance. Whatever built that ship understood physics we're only beginning to grasp. In the isolation room, Fraser had moved to neurological scans. Clark, I need you to stay very still while I map your brain activity. This won't hurt. Sure. He remained motionless with the supernatural stillness of someone who could control his body to microscopic precision. Dr. Fraser? Can I ask a question? Of course. The Goa'uld. The false gods. Are they really as bad as the stories say? The things I've heard from refugees who came through our gate over the years. Fraser's expression darkened. Worse. They take humans as hosts, unwilling possession. The host is conscious but powerless while the symbiote controls their body. They've enslaved billions across thousands of worlds. Created entire civilizations that worship them out of terror. And you fight them. Earth fights them. We do. Through this Stargate program. It's classified above top secret, but yes, we've been at war with the Goa'uld since we reopened the gate 5 years ago. We've made allies, freed some worlds, discovered ancient technology that helps level the playing field. But we're still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Clark was quiet for a moment, processing. Then I want to help. However I can. I've spent 20 years on a farming world being careful, being responsible, not using what I am except to help with harvests and protect people from the occasional wild animal. But if there's a war happening, if people are suffering, I can't just ignore that. Noble sentiment, O'Neill's voice came through the observation speaker, making Clark glance toward the glass he could see through perfectly. But we don't know you, farm boy. Don't know if we can trust you. Don't know if that power of yours comes with strings attached. For all we know, you're some kind of Trojan horse sent by a Goa'uld who's smarter than average. I understand your doubt, Colonel. Clark looked directly at where O'Neill stood despite the one-way glass. If I were in your position, I'd doubt me too. All I can offer is time. Let me prove myself. Test me, study me, watch me. And when you're convinced I'm not a threat, let me help. Hammond's voice joined the conversation. Mr. Kent, even if we determine you're not hostile, involving you in gate operations raises questions I'm not authorized to answer alone. This goes above my pay grade to the Joint Chiefs, possibly to the President. An alien with your capabilities working for the U.S. military through a classified program? The political implications alone. I'm not asking to work for anyone, General. Clark's Midwestern earnestness carried through his tone. I'm asking to work with you. With Earth. Against the Goa'uld. I don't need a rank or a paycheck. I just need a chance to do something that matters. In the observation room, Daniel leaned forward. General, we've based our entire gate program on exploration, discovery, and building alliances. We've worked with the Tak'are, the Asgard, Free Jaffa. Clark Kent might be from a species we've never encountered, but that's exactly the kind of ally we've been seeking. Someone powerful enough to challenge the Goa'uld but not interested in dominating others. Or he's exactly what the Goa'uld would send if they wanted to infiltrate us at the highest level, O'Neill countered. I'm not saying shoot him. I'm saying let's be really, really sure before we give him access to classified intel and gate coordinates. Agreed. Hammond watched as Fraser concluded her scans. Doctor, your medical assessment. Physically, he's not human but shows no signs of disease, parasites, or technological implants. Psychologically, he presents as stable, cooperative, and genuine. But General, I'm a medical doctor, not a xenobiologist. What I'm seeing in these scans suggests biology that shouldn't exist. I need more time. Time we may not have. Carter gestured to her tablet. Sir, I'm picking up unusual gate activity. Someone's dialing in. The alarm klaxons blared through the facility. Hammond moved with practiced efficiency toward the control room. Close the iris. All personnel to defensive positions. SG-1, get to the gate room. Clark was on his feet instantly despite the armed guards. What's happening? Unscheduled off-world activation, Fraser explained, moving toward the door. Someone's dialing Earth without authorization. Through the mountain facility's reinforced structure, Clark's enhanced hearing picked up the Stargate engaging. Chevrons locking. The wormhole establishing. And then, something striking the iris with massive force. Once. Twice. 3 times. General. Carter's voice carried urgency through the speakers. We're receiving a transmission. Audio only. It's. A voice filled the gate room, ancient, powerful, dripping with malevolent amusement. Clark recognized the cadence from stories told by refugees. The accent of false divinity. Tauri. I am Baal, System Lord of the Goa'uld Empire. I know you harbor the one who destroyed my scout ship. The invulnerable warrior. Surrender him to me, and I will grant your pathetic world swift destruction rather than eternal slavery. Refuse, and I will personally claim every human on your planet as host. You have one of your days to comply. The transmission ended. The gate shut down. In the silence that followed, every eye in Stargate Command turned toward the isolation room where Clark Kent stood, understanding finally settling over his features with terrible clarity. He'd brought the attention of a Goa'uld System Lord directly to Earth's doorstep. The briefing room felt smaller than it was, a psychological effect of having 20 senior personnel crowded around a table designed for 12. Clark sat at the far end, still flanked by armed guards despite the shift from prisoner to, whatever he was now. Potential asset. Possible liability. Definitely a complication. General Hammond stood at the head of the table, his expression carrying the particular weariness of a commander who just had his Monday turn into a crisis. Let's establish facts. 3 hours ago, SG-1 brought Mr. Kent through the gate. 2 hours ago, System Lord Baal issued a direct threat against Earth demanding we surrender him. Major Carter, what do we know about Baal? Carter activated the screen behind Hammond, displaying images of a Goa'uld in elaborate armor. Baal is one of the most cunning system lords. Unlike Apophis who preferred direct confrontation, Baal uses manipulation, technology, and long-term strategy. He's been relatively quiet recently, consolidating power after the System Lord's civil conflicts. If he's making direct threats, he considers this serious. Serious enough to risk attacking Earth directly? Hammond asked. Normally, no sir. Earth is protected under the Asgard's Protected Planets Treaty. But if Baal thinks he can acquire a weapon powerful enough to challenge other system lords, or the Asgard themselves, he might risk Thor's displeasure. Clark listened quietly, absorbing the geopolitical complexity of a galaxy where politics and warfare intertwined across thousands of worlds. This was so far beyond anything he'd encountered on his farming world that the scale alone was dizzying. Which brings us to you, Mr. Kent. Hammond's attention fixed on Clark with evaluative intensity. In the space of 3 months, you've gone from unknown to Goa'uld priority target. What exactly happened with that scout ship? It arrived at night, Clark began, keeping his explanation factual. 2 Jaffa Death gliders and a Teltac cargo ship. They landed outside my village and started rounding up people, young adults mostly. I heard the screaming from my farm. By the time I got there, they'd already taken 30 people through the cargo ship's rings. And you decided to intervene, TLC said. It wasn't a question. I couldn't just watch. These were people I grew up with. Friends. So I flew up to the ship while it was taking off. The Jaffa inside opened fire with staff weapons. The energy blasts hurt, he touched his chest where the impacts had struck, but not enough to stop me. I tore through the hull, got the prisoners to the transport rings, beamed them down. Then I disabled the ship's engines and brought it down in an empty field. You're saying staff weapons can hurt you? O'Neill leaned forward with tactical interest. Concentrated energy weapons, yes. They don't penetrate, but the impact transfers force. Enough hits in succession and I'd be in trouble. Physical damage, I heal from almost instantly. Energy attacks are different. Like the difference between getting punched and getting shocked. Carter was already taking notes. That suggests your invulnerability is matter-based rather than energy-based. Energy attacks interact with your cellular structure differently than kinetic force. I don't understand the science, Clark admitted. I just know what hurts and what doesn't. Daniel had been studying the reconnaissance photos of the crashed Teltac that SG-1 had retrieved. Clark, did any of the Jaffa survive to report back? I made sure they could evacuate before I brought the ship down. Used the transport rings to send them to the ground. They saw me. They saw what I could do. Clark's expression carried regret. I didn't think about the larger implications. I just wanted to save my people. And now Baal knows there's someone who can tear through Goa'uld ships with their bare hands. O'Neill sat back, arms crossed. Great. Just great. A new voice entered the discussion, Major Paul Davis from the Pentagon, present via video conference. General Hammond, the Joint Chiefs are extremely concerned about this development. We've managed to keep Earth's location secret from most Goa'uld for years. Now we have a system lord specifically targeting our planet because of one individual. The question is whether Mr. Kent is worth that risk. Clark felt the weight of that assessment like a physical thing. 25 years of existence reduced to a tactical calculation. Worth the risk. He understood it, had made similar calculations about whether to reveal his abilities on his adopted world. But understanding didn't make it easier. With respect, Major Davis, TLC spoke with the authority of someone who'd served false gods and learned their nature intimately. Baal would have found Earth eventually. The System Lords have sought the Tauri location since SG-1 began operations. Clark Kent's presence merely accelerates the inevitable. The question is whether we face that inevitability alone or with an ally who has proven capable of disabling gold vessels. An ally we met 3 hours ago, Davis countered. Whose biology we don't understand, whose loyalty is unproven, and who might be exactly what the gold would send if they wanted to infiltrate Stargate Command. I'm not gold. Clark's voice carried quiet firmness. Dr. Fraser's scans confirmed no symbiote, no Naquata in my blood. I'm not human either, but I'm not your enemy. Then what are you? Hammond asked directly. We need answers, son. Real ones. Because in 24 hours -3, Baal is expecting a response. And I need to know whether we're protecting an ally or harboring a weapon that's going to get Earth invaded. Clark took a breath, organized his thoughts. I don't have all the answers, General. I know I arrived through your Stargate as an infant in an escape pod. I know the technology that built that pod is beyond anything on the world where I grew up. I know I absorb solar radiation and it powers abilities that make me stronger, faster, and more durable than any human. I know I can fly without technology, survive in conditions that would kill normal people, and that I've been careful with these abilities my entire life because my parents taught me that power without responsibility is tyranny. He met Hammond's eyes steadily. I know that the gold are slavers who claim to be gods and use technology to enforce that lie. And I know that if I can help stop them, I have a responsibility to try. Not because Earth is my birth world, I don't even know where my birth world is. But because standing by while people suffer when you have the power to help is wrong. That's all I know for certain. The briefing room was silent for a long moment. Daniel broke it with characteristic academic timing. General, the symbology on Clark's pod, I've been running it through every database we have. Ancient, Goa'uld, Asgard, even the Furling fragments. Nothing matches. This is a completely unknown written language from a civilization we've never encountered. The implications are staggering. We might be looking at evidence of a race that predates even the ancients. Or a very elaborate Goa'uld deception. O'Neill maintained his skepticism like armor. Playing the long game. Send a baby through the gate, let him grow up seeming innocent, activate him when he's in position. If I were activated, Colonel, wouldn't I have done it by now? Clark's logic was simple. You've brought me to your most secure facility. I know where Earth Stargate is, your security protocols, your personnel. If I were a sleeper agent, this would be the moment to strike. Instead, I'm sitting here answering questions and trying to convince you I'm genuine. Carter's scientific mind had been working through tactical calculations. General, if we assume Clark is genuine, which I'm inclined to believe based on his cooperation and Dr. Fraser's medical findings, we need to address Baal's ultimatum. We have 3 options: surrender Clark, refuse and prepare for attack, or attempt negotiation. We don't negotiate with terrorists or false gods, Hammond said flatly. And we're not surrendering anyone who came to us for help. That leaves option 2. Preparing for attack from a System Lord. Davis's voice carried Pentagon concern. General, we barely survived Apophis's assault on Earth. Baal is smarter, better equipped, and now highly motivated. Can we survive another direct attack? We have the upgraded Iris, improved Naquata reactors, and the Prometheus is nearly operational, Carter offered. But against a full System Lord assault with multiple Hatak vessels? Our odds aren't good. Clark had been listening to the tactical discussion with growing concern. General Hammond, if I'm the target, why risk Earth at all? Let me leave. Go through the gate to another world, draw Baal's attention away from here. Absolutely not, TLC said immediately. Baal would view Earth's capitulation as weakness. He would attack regardless and pursue you as well. You would be alone and hunted across the galaxy while Earth still faced invasion. TLC's right, O'Neill agreed. Running makes both of us targets. And splitting up our assets when we're about to get hit is tactical suicide. Then what do you propose? Hammond looked around the table. We can't surrender him. We can't run. We can't hide. What's left? We call Baal's bluff, Daniel suggested. Show him that taking Earth isn't worth the cost. The Asgard will defend us. We have allies. We're not defenseless. Except the Asgard are currently dealing with replicators in their home galaxy, Carter reminded him. Thor might not be able to respond in time. And our other allies, the Takare, the Free Jaffa, they're not strong enough to deter a System Lord. The tactical problem was complex, multi-layered, and rapidly becoming unsolvable through conventional means. Clark could see it in the faces around the table, competent, experienced military personnel hitting the limits of their options. He'd spent 20 years being careful. Being restrained. Using his power to help with farm work and the occasional rescue. Never anything that would draw attention. Never anything that would make him a target. That caution had just endangered an entire planet. There might be another option. Clark's voice cut through the tactical debate. What if we don't wait for Baal to attack? What if we take the fight to him? Every head turned. Explain, Hammond commanded. You said Baal is cunning. Strategic. He makes calculated risks. Clark's tactical thinking was unpolished but sound. He sent a scout ship to my world, probably testing defenses, looking for easy targets. I destroyed it. Now he's threatening Earth because he wants what I can do. But he's a System Lord. He has rivals, territories to defend, other threats to manage. An assault on Earth under Asgard protection is risky even for him. Your point. O'Neill's skepticism had shifted to interest. My point is Baal is making a threat he might not actually want to follow through on. He's gambling that you'll give me up rather than fight. But what if instead of waiting for his attack, we go through the gate and hit one of his assets? Show him that harboring me makes Earth too dangerous to attack. That the cost of getting to me is higher than I'm worth. Carter's eyes widened. Asymmetric warfare. We can't match a System Lord in direct fleet combat, but we can make occupying this sector too expensive to be worthwhile. It's insane, Davis protested through the video link. You're talking about launching a preemptive strike against a gold System Lord based on the untested abilities of someone we met this morning. Yes, Clark said simply. That's exactly what I'm proposing. Give me a target, one of Baal's facilities, a weapons depot, a garrison. Let me prove what I can do. Show him that I'm not a prize to be captured. I'm a threat to his operations. Make keeping me alive and free in this galaxy more valuable to him than trying to take me. The briefing room erupted in overlapping conversation, tactical objections, strategic considerations, political implications. Through it all, Hammond remained silent, watching Clark with evaluating intensity. Finally, the general raised one hand. Silence fell. Mr. Kent, what you're proposing is effectively an act of war. Not just against Baal, but potentially against the entire Gold System Lord hierarchy. It would escalate our conflict from defensive operations to active offensive campaigns against System Lord holdings. Yes, sir. It would also put you in extreme danger. We have no idea how you'd react to sustained combat against Jaffa forces, Gold technology, or System Lord personal defenses. You could be captured, killed, or turned against us. Yes, sir. And you're still volunteering. Clark met Hammond's gaze steadily. General, I've spent my entire life being careful. Being safe. Hiding what I am. And in 24 hours, that caution might get Earth invaded because I wasn't careful enough. If I have power, real power, and I don't use it to help when help is needed, then I'm just as responsible for the suffering as the people causing it. So yes. I'm volunteering. Hammond was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his flagship team. SG-1, you've worked with more aliens than anyone in this program. Takare, Asgard, former Jaffa. What's your assessment? TLC spoke first. I believe him genuine. His understanding of power and responsibility mirrors the lessons I learned in abandoning Apophis. I would stand with him. Daniel nodded. Everything about his story checks out. The pod technology, his biology, his cooperation. I think he's exactly what he appears to be, someone looking for answers who found a war instead. Carter's scientific analysis was measured. His abilities are real, unprecedented, and potentially decisive in combat situations. The risk of deploying him is significant. But so is the risk of not deploying him when we have a System Lord threatening invasion. All eyes turned to O'Neill. The colonel studied Clark with the particular intensity of someone who'd learned to read people in situations where misreading meant death. I think, Jack said slowly, that he's either the most elaborate con in history or the genuine article. And my gut, which has kept me alive through a lot of really stupid situations, says genuine. Doesn't mean I trust him completely. But I trust him enough to give him a shot. Hammond nodded slowly. Then here's what we're going to do. Mr. Kent, you're going on a mission. With SG-1. We have intelligence on a Baal-controlled Naquata mining operation on P7X-009, moderate Jaffa garrison, strategic value, but not so critical that destroying it starts a full System Lord war. You're going to demonstrate your capabilities in a combat environment. If you perform as claimed, we move to Phase 2. If you can't handle it, or if this is some kind of trap, SG-1 has orders to bring you down by any means necessary. Understood, General. Colonel O'Neill, assemble your team. You have 2 hours to brief and equip. Mr. Kent remains under guard until gate activation. Dr. Fraser, prepare medical for potential gold casualties and have sedatives ready, strong ones, just in case our guest isn't as friendly as he seems. Hammond stood, and the room came to attention. Dismissed. And people, let's make damn sure this doesn't turn into the worst decision in Stargate command history. As the briefing broke up, Clark found himself escorted back to isolation by guards who no longer looked at him with quite as much hostility. More like nervous curiosity. What would someone who could fly and tear through gold ships do when actually unleashed in combat? In 2 hours, Earth would find out. And somewhere in the galaxy, System Lord Baal waited for an answer to his ultimatum, unaware that the answer was already being prepared. Just not the one he expected. The armory at Stargate Command hummed with pre-mission preparation. SG-1 moved through equipment checks with practiced efficiency, P-90S, sidearms, grenades, medical kits, radio gear. Clark stood to one side, watching the ritual of soldiers preparing for combat. A ritual he'd never participated in. You ever been in actual combat before, farm boy? O'Neill asked, slapping a fresh magazine into his P-90. And I mean combat, not wrestling cattle or punching out crop thieves. No sir. The Jaffa at my world were my first real fight. And that lasted maybe 3 minutes. Great. We're taking a complete rookie on a Black Ops mission against Gold Forces. Jack didn't sound happy about it. Carter, please tell me you've got something that'll actually help him. Carter approached carrying what looked like a tactical vest modified with extra pouches and communication gear. Mr. Kent, this is a standard SG team vest. Radio, GDO transmitter, medical supplies, and emergency rations. I've also included a ZAT, that's a gold weapon we've captured. 1 shot stuns, 2 kills, 3 disintegrates. Consider it a non-lethal option. Clark accepted the vest, noting how the fabric strained slightly across his broader shoulders. Thank you, Major. Though I'm hoping not to need weapons. Hope is great, O'Neill said. Preparation is better. The Jaffa on this mining operation are soldiers, Kent. They've been trained from childhood to fight and die for false gods. They will not hesitate. You hesitate, you die. Or worse, you get my team killed. The weight of that responsibility settled across Clark's shoulders heavier than any vest. I won't let that happen, Colonel. See that you don't. Jack turned to his team. Final briefing. Daniel, you're our cultural liaison if we encounter local slaves. Carter, you're on tech. We need that mining operations data on Baal's Naquata shipments if possible. TLC, tactical assessment and backup combat. And Kent, he fixed Clark with a hard stare, you're our shock trooper. First in, draw fire, create enough chaos that we can complete the objective. Think you can handle that? Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. I work for a living. And stop being so damn polite, it's making me nervous. We're about to go poke a System Lord in the eye. Little bit of attitude would be reassuring. Clark managed a slight smile. I'll try to be more insubordinate, Colorado, Jack. Better. O'Neill checked his watch. We gate in 10. TLC, run him through Jaffa tactics one more time. The former first prime of Apophis approached with the bearing of someone who'd commanded armies. The Jaffa at this facility will be experienced warriors. They carry staff weapons which fire concentrated plasma. As you discovered, these can harm you. They also serve in disciplined formations. Attacking them individually is effective, but attacking their formation structure is more so. Formation structure? Clark asked. Jaffa fight in units of 5, a hand. 3 hands form a talon. The unit leader coordinates through shouted commands and hand signals. Disrupt their command structure and the formation collapses into individual warriors. Much easier to defeat. So target the leaders first. Indeed. Also be aware that some Jaffa possess personal shield devices. They will stop projectile weapons but you should be able to penetrate them physically. And all Jaffa carry symbiotes which grant enhanced healing. Wounding one is insufficient, you must fully incapacitate. Daniel joined them, pulling on his own vest. Clark, you should also know that many of these Jaffa are slaves to their false gods, but they're still people. They genuinely believe Baal is divine. Try not to kill them if you can avoid it. We're trying to foment rebellion among the Jaffa, not give them more reasons to see Earth as the enemy. I understand. Disable, not kill. Good man. Daniel adjusted his glasses with the nervous energy of an academic about to walk into danger. Also, there may be human slaves at this facility. Prisoners, workers. If things go badly, they're going to be caught in the crossfire. We need to get them out if possible. Carter finished her own prep and approached with a small device. Mr. Kent, this is a subcutaneous transmitter. If you're willing, I'd like to implant it, just under the skin, takes 5 seconds. It'll let us track your position and vital signs during the mission. If you're compromised, we can find you. Clark extended his arm. Carter pressed the injector against his skin and activated it. The needle bent against his invulnerability. Right. Of course. She adjusted settings. Clark, you'll need to lower my resistance. I remember. He concentrated, feeling his cells reluctantly part as the needle slid through. The transmitter embedded itself beneath the skin, and Carter stepped back as the entry wound sealed instantly. Fascinating, she murmured. Your control over your own biology is remarkable. Years of practice. When normal medical care doesn't work, you learn to improvise. The armory speakers crackled. SG-1, you're cleared for gate room. Dial sequence initiating. The team moved as one unit toward the embarkation room. Clark followed, hyper-aware of the dozens of personnel watching through the control room windows. Some curious. Some concerned. all wondering if the stranger with impossible powers was about to save them or doom them. General Hammond waited in the gate room as the chevrons locked in sequence. SG-1, your mission is reconnaissance and disruption. Primary objective, assess Baal's mining operation and destroy critical infrastructure. Secondary objective, evaluate Mr. Kent's capabilities in combat conditions. If at any point this mission is compromised, you abort immediately. We're not risking Earth's flagship team for one strike. Clear. Clear, sir, O'Neill responded. Hammond turned to Clark. Mr. Kent, this is your chance to prove yourself. To show Earth you're worth the risk Baal represents. Don't waste it. I won't, General. The seventh chevron locked. The wormhole exploded outward and stabilized into shimmering blue infinity. SG-1, you have a go, Hammond ordered. O'Neill led the way through. Carter followed. Daniel next. TLC gestured for Clark to precede him, a tactical courtesy keeping the unknown element under observation. Clark stepped into the event horizon and felt molecular dissolution again. The universe compressed to a point of quantum uncertainty, then expanded across light-years in an instant. He emerged on the other side into alien air and red-tinted sunlight. P7X-009 was a desert world. Rocky canyons stretched under a sky that was the wrong color, too orange, too bright. Two suns burned overhead, smaller than Earth's soul but binary and hot. Clark felt their radiation immediately, his cells drinking solar energy hungrily. He'd never experienced double sun exposure before. The power that flowed through him increased noticeably, a reservoir filling faster than usual. The Stargate stood on a ridge overlooking a canyon complex where gold structures dominated the landscape. Pyramidal buildings in burnished metal. Towers with observation platforms. And at the center, a massive strip mining operation that had carved a wound into the planet's surface, Naquata extraction on industrial scale. Carter had her binoculars up. I'm counting approximately 50 Jaffa in visible positions. 2 guard towers with staff cannons. Transport rings at the primary facility, probably connects to a Teltac or Alkesh in orbit. And there, that's the main mining laser array. Take that out and we cripple their extraction capabilities. Security patterns? O'Neill asked. TLC observed with tactical precision. Standard garrison deployment. Patrols in hands of 5, rotating shifts every 3 hours. They do not expect attack, their defenses face the mining operation, not the surrounding terrain. We can approach from the ridge to within 200 yards before detection. Unless they have long-range sensors, Daniel worried. Gould rely on Jaffa perception over automated systems, TLC assured him. Arrogance makes them predictable. O'Neill turned to Clark. All right, Superman, here's how this works. Carter and I approach from the west, plant C4 on the mining laser's power couplings. Daniel and TLC secure an exit route and extract any prisoners they find. You, he pointed at the facility, you're going to fly down there and make a lot of noise. Draw every Jaffa in that garrison out into the open where they're not near civilians or critical systems. Can you do that? Draw fire and cause chaos. I think I can manage that. Good. Wait for Carter's signal, then light them up. And Kent? Jack's expression carried genuine concern beneath the tactical hardness. Stay alive. I've already got enough paperwork without adding "Lost the Alien Superman" to my mission report. Clark nodded, moving to the ridge edge. Below, Jaffa warriors moved through their routines, unaware that their boring garrison duty was about to become significantly more interesting. Carter and O'Neill disappeared into the canyon's shadow, moving with Special Forces stealth. Daniel and TLC flanked opposite, heading for what looked like a barrack structure. Clark waited, feeling the double suns feeding power into every cell, watching 50 armed warriors who'd spent their lives serving false gods. He'd never wanted to be a soldier. Had never imagined himself in combat. But watching those Jaffa patrol past buildings where human prisoners likely suffered, knowing they served a system lord who threatened Earth, who claimed divinity through slavery and terror. Sometimes responsibility meant stepping into roles you never wanted. Carter's voice crackled through his radio. In position. Charges set. Kent, you're clear to engage. Try not to wreck anything we need for intel. Understood. Clark took a breath, feeling the alien air fill lungs that didn't strictly need oxygen but used it anyway. Going in. He stepped off the ridge and flew. The sensation never got old, defying gravity through nothing but will and biology, moving through 3 dimensions with perfect control. He descended toward the garrison at measured speed, making no effort at stealth. The whole point was to be seen. A Jaffa spotted him first, a young warrior on tower duty who stared at the flying figure with incomprehension before reaching for an alarm horn. Clark accelerated, crossed 200 yards in under a second, and gently plucked the horn from the warrior's hand before he could sound it. Sorry, Clark said. Need to borrow this. He crushed the horn into twisted metal and dropped it. The Jaffa stared. Other warriors were looking up now, pointing, shouting. Clark rose 20 feet above the compound center and raised his voice, projecting with lungs that could shout across miles. I'm the one your system lord wants. The one who destroyed his scout ship. If Baal wants me, come take me. 50 staff weapons tracked upward as one. Oh, this is gonna hurt, Clark muttered. The first volley of plasma fire lit up the desert like a thunderstorm. And SG-1's mission began in earnest. Concentrated plasma fire converged on Clark's position from 36 staff weapons simultaneously. The impacts struck like sledgehammers wrapped in lightning, kinetic force combined with superheated energy that his invulnerability struggled to fully dissipate. Each hit registered as pain, burning across his skin, driving him backward through the air. But he didn't fall. Clark steadied himself, feeling the double suns overhead feeding him power faster than the staff weapons could drain it. The Jaffa below were reorganizing, their initial shock giving way to disciplined military response. 3 talons forming defensive positions. Tower-mounted staff cannons swiveling toward him. A warrior in ornate armor, the garrison commander, shouting orders in gold. Carter, I've got their attention, Clark said into his radio, diving toward the nearest Talon formation. They're definitely not happy about it. Copy that. We're moving on the mining laser. Keep them busy. Clark swept low over the compound, drawing fire away from his team's position. Staff blasts carved through the air around him, tracking his movement with increasing accuracy. The Jaffa were learning his speed, his flight patterns. Professional soldiers adapting to an impossible threat. He landed in a compound center courtyard, and 15 warriors immediately surrounded him in textbook formation. Their commander barked an order. The circle tightened. Last chance, Clark called out in the trade language he'd learned from refugees. I don't want to hurt you. You don't have to serve Baal. You can be free. The commander's response was to level his staff weapon directly at Clark's face and fire. The plasma bolt struck at point-blank range, snapping Clark's head back. His vision whited out for a second, thermal shock overwhelming his optic nerves. But his skull held. His brain remained undamaged. And when his vision cleared, he was angry. Not the rage of battle. The anger of disappointment. These warriors were slaves defending their enslaver. Fighting for a false god who'd stolen their entire culture, raised them from birth to die for his glory. They deserved better. Clark moved with speed his opponents couldn't track. He disarmed the commander in a blur of motion, crushing the staff weapon into scrap metal. Then he moved through the circle, doing the same to each warrior, disarming, not harming. Weapons destroyed, warriors stumbled backward in shock, reaching for Zat guns as backup. The Zat fire actually hurt worse than the staff weapons, electrical disruption that interfaced directly with his nervous system. Clark gritted his teeth, pushed through the stunning effect, and continued his non-lethal assault. Warriors went down unconscious or writhing from nerve disruption, but alive. All alive. What manner of sorcery is this? The commander staggered back, drawing a knife that would be useless against Kryptonian skin. What demon are you? Not a demon. Not a god. Just someone who thinks you deserve better than slavery. Clark advanced carefully, hands visible and non-threatening despite having just incapacitated 15 warriors in under 30 seconds. Baal isn't divine. He's a parasite in a stolen body. You don't have to die for him. The commander's expression twisted, faith warring with evidence. Then he pressed something on his forearm bracer and spoke urgently in Goa'uld. Alert. Unknown hostile in compound. Request immediate. Clark gently crushed the communication device before the message completed. Sorry. Can't let you call for backup yet. We need a few more minutes. Explosions erupted from the mining laser array, Carter's C4 charges detonating in precisely timed sequence. The massive extraction equipment shuddered, sparked, and began collapsing in on itself as power couplings exploded. Secondary fires erupted from Naquadah fuel cells igniting. Charges successful, Carter's voice confirmed. Mining operation is toast. Daniel, TLC, status. We have located the prisoner barracks, TLC responded. 37 human slaves. Preparing extraction. Negative, Daniel's voice carried urgency. We've got a problem. There are Jaffa guarding them, and they're threatening to execute the prisoners if we advance. We need. Clark was airborne before Daniel finished the sentence. He flew over the burning mining equipment, traced the radio signal to a long rectangular building, and descended through the roof, literally, his body punching through metal plating like it was paper. He dropped into chaos. 20 terrified humans huddled against one wall. 5 Jaffa warriors with staff weapons trained on them. A 6th warrior, marked as unit leader, holding a zat to a young woman's head while shouting in Goa'uld. Clark's enhanced hearing caught TLC's translation through the building's walls. He says if we do not withdraw, the prisoners die. He demands we surrender or he will execute them one by one. Time seemed to slow as Clark assessed. 5 staff weapons. 1 zat. 26 feet between him and the nearest Jaffa. The warriors were nervous, fingers tight on triggers. The prisoners were crying, praying to gods who weren't listening. The woman with a zat to her head was maybe 19, Earth years. Terrified but defiant. No time for talking. No time for negotiation. Clark moved. He crossed the distance to the unit leader faster than human eye could track, caught the zat's barrel, and crushed it into useless metal before the warrior could fire. His other hand caught the Jaffa's staff weapon as it swung toward him, snapped it in half. The other 4 warriors opened fire. Plasma bolts struck Clark's back at point-blank range, devastating impacts that would have killed any human instantly. They drove him forward a step, burned through his borrowed vest, seared his skin. But didn't penetrate. He turned, still shielding the prisoners with his body, and swept through the remaining Jaffa like a controlled storm. Disarm. Disable. Don't kill. 10 seconds later, all 5 warriors lay unconscious. The prisoners stared at Clark with expressions mixing relief and terror. The young woman he'd saved backed away, eyes wide. It's okay, Clark said gently, raising his hands peacefully despite smoke rising from plasma burns across his shoulders. I'm with the Tauri. We're here to get you out. You flew through the roof, she whispered. Yeah. I do that sometimes. Are you hurt? She shook her head numbly. The other prisoners were finding their voices, questions, prayers, confusion. Daniel and TLC entered through the door, weapons ready, then lowered them as they assessed the situation. Well, Daniel said, surveying the unconscious Jaffa. That's one way to negotiate a hostage situation. I didn't see another option. Clark examined his vest, scorched beyond use, hanging in tatters. The shirt beneath was burned away in places, revealing skin that was already healing. Everyone seems okay. Physically, at least. Get them to the gate, O'Neill's voice cut through the radio. We've got incoming. Someone triggered a long-range alert. Teltac dropping out of orbit, ETA 2 minutes. We need to extract now. TLC immediately began organizing prisoners. Follow me. Quickly. We must reach the Chapa AI before. The building's wall exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris stepped a figure in ornate armor that marked him as far more than a garrison commander. The Goa'uld symbiote's presence was obvious in his eyes, they glowed with false divinity. His voice carried that distinctive dual-tone resonance of host and parasite speaking as one. So, the Goa'uld said, studying Clark with predatory interest. This is the prize Baal seeks. The indestructible warrior. I am Koreke, first prime to Lord Baal. And you are coming with me. He raised a hand device, a Karakesh ribbon attachment that Goa'uld used to channel their will into devastating force. Energy gathered around his palm, not the simple plasma of staff weapons but something more refined. Ancient technology powered by Naquaddle-laced blood and millennia of practice. The blast struck Clark like a physical hand closing around his entire body. Telekinetic force combined with direct neural assault, technology designed to incapacitate through agony rather than injury. Clark felt his muscles lock, his nervous system screaming, his vision blurring. But he'd absorbed power from 2 suns for the last hour. His cells were saturated with solar radiation, practically burning with stored energy. And unlike the humans the hand device was designed to affect, his biology was fundamentally alien. Clark pushed back. It wasn't conscious technique, pure instinct and will forcing his body to resist the Goa'uld technology. The telekinetic grip loosened. Koreke's eyes widened fractionally, the first hint of concern breaking through Goa'uld arrogance. Impossible, the first prime hissed. No human can resist the Karakesh. Good thing I'm not human. Clark broke free completely, surging forward. Koreke was fast, enhanced by his symbiote, trained in combat for decades. He dodged Clark's initial rush, brought his staff weapon around in a practice strike that would have caved in a human skull. The metal shaft shattered against Clark's temple. You cannot harm a god's chosen. Koreke snarled, backing toward the breach in the wall. Baal will claim you. You will kneel before your lord. Not interested in kneeling. Clark advanced steadily. Behind him, TLC was evacuating prisoners through the back exit, but he could hear more Jaffa approaching. Reinforcements from the Teltac. They were running out of time. Koreke triggered something on his forearm, transport rings materialized around him in vertical columns of light. The Goa'uld First Prime smiled coldly. You have power, warrior. But power without knowledge is worthless. We will study you. Break you. And when Baal is finished, you will beg to serve. The rings flashed. Koreke disappeared, beaming up to the Teltac overhead. Clark, move. O'Neill's voice was urgent. That ship's charging weapons. They're going to level this facility with everyone in it. Clark burst through the building's wall, no time for doors, and saw the Teltac hovering 300 feet up. Its ventral weapons ports were glowing, building charge for a bombardment that would atomize everything below. 37 prisoners still evacuating toward the gate. SG-1 covering their retreat. And a Goa'uld ship preparing to turn the entire garrison into a crater. Clark had seconds to make a choice. He could fly to the ship, try to disable it before it fired. But Koreke knew what he could do now, would be prepared with hand devices, shield technology, maybe even that sarcophagus-enhanced combat skill the Goa'uld possessed. The fight could take minutes they didn't have. Or he could do what needed doing. Clark planted his feet, bent his knees, and jumped. Not flight, Pure muscular force channeling solar power through Kryptonian physiology in explosive release. He launched himself at the Teltac like a missile, arms extended, body streamlined for maximum impact. He struck the ship's underside at terminal velocity. The sound was thunder. The impact cratered the Teltac's hull, drove through armor plating and structural supports, and sent the entire vessel spinning. Atmosphere vented explosively. Systems sparked and failed. The ship listed hard to starboard, engines failing, losing altitude. Clark grabbed hold of the hull breach he'd created and pulled. Metal screamed. He tore a 15-foot section completely free, exposing the ship's interior to atmosphere. Inside, Jaffa warriors stumbled, reaching for support as their vessel fell from the sky. Abandon ship. Clark shouted through the breach. Rings. Use the rings. To their credit, the Jaffa were disciplined even in disaster. Transport rings activated throughout the Teltac, crew evacuating to the ground as their ship died around them. Clark saw Koreke among them, the first Prime's face twisted with rage and disbelief as he beamed out. The Teltac was falling faster now, trajectory taking it away from the garrison toward empty desert. Clark stayed with it, using his strength to guide the descent, to ensure it wouldn't crash into anything critical. At 50 feet he kicked away, letting momentum and gravity finish the job. The ship impacted in a canyon 2 miles from the garrison. Metal shrieked. Structures collapsed. Fire bloomed in the dry air. But there were no casualties, the crew had evacuated, and the crash site was clear. Clark floated above the wreckage, breathing hard despite not strictly needing to, feeling the burn of spent energy and staff weapon impacts. His tactical vest was destroyed. His shirt was mostly carbon. But he was alive. The prisoners were alive. And Baal's mining operation was thoroughly, completely wrecked. Kent. O'Neill's voice carried something that might have been approval. Status? I'm fine. Ship's down. Everyone evacuated safely. Good. Because we need to leave. Right now. That crash probably showed up on every gold sensor within 100 light-years. Get back to the gate. Clark flew back toward the garrison, seeing SG-1 herding the last prisoners toward the ridge where the Stargate waited. Jaffa warriors watched from the ruins of their facility, disarmed, defeated, but alive. Koreke stood among them, glaring up at the flying figure with hatred that would definitely be reported back to Baal. By the time Clark reached the gate, the last prisoner was stepping through. Carter was at the DHD, Daniel and TLC providing cover. O'Neill gestured urgently. Move, move. We're 30 seconds from that garrison getting their act together. Clark touched down as Carter completed the dialing sequence. The wormhole established. Earth's iris codes transmitted. One by one, SG-1 stepped through. Before Clark followed, he turned back toward the garrison. Toward Koreke and the warriors who'd fought for their false god. He raised his voice, projecting across the desert. You don't have to serve them. The gold aren't gods. You can be free. Koreke's response was to spit toward the gate. But among the other Jaffa, Clark saw uncertainty. Doubt. Seeds planted that might grow into something more. Then he stepped through the event horizon back to Earth, leaving a System Lord's garrison in ruins and a clear message delivered. Baal had demanded Earth's surrender. Earth had sent its answer. The gate room at Stargate Command erupted in controlled chaos as SG-1 and 37 liberated prisoners materialized through the event horizon. Medical teams swarmed forward with gurneys and assessment kits. Security personnel established perimeter. And Clark stepped through last, smoke still rising from his burned clothing, feeling exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. Medical teams processed the refugees, Hammond ordered from the control room. SG-1, decontamination and debrief in 30 minutes. Mr. Kent, he paused, taking in Clark's appearance, get checked by Dr. Fraser, then report to the briefing room. Clark nodded, too tired to speak. The adrenaline that had carried him through combat was fading, leaving behind the reality of what he'd just done. Fought soldiers. Destroyed a ship. Started something that couldn't be taken back. Dr. Fraser approached with her medical scanner, her expression shifting from professional assessment to medical alarm. Clark, you have third-degree burns over 40% of your body surface. You need immediate. She stopped, watching as the burns visibly healed while she spoke, new skin forming over damaged tissue. Never mind. You're already healing. Of course you are. Staff weapons hurt more than I expected, Clark admitted. The concentrated energy bypasses some of my resistance. But I'll be fine. The prisoners, are they okay? Physically, yes. Psychologically, they'll need time. Most were taken years ago, enslaved in that mining operation. They'll undergo full medical screening, psychological evaluation, and relocation assistance. Fraser's scanner beeped insistently. Clark, your cellular energy readings are lower than baseline. Significantly lower. Whatever you did out there, it cost you. I'll recover. The sun's here, sorry, the sun, it's recharging me already. Even through the mountain's bulk, through layers of reinforced concrete and steel. Clark could feel Sol's radiation reaching him. Weaker than the double suns of P7X009, but present. Just need a few hours. You're getting more than that. You're getting a full medical workup, nutrition, rest, and monitoring. Fraser's tone brooked no argument. I don't care if you can fly and stop bullets, you're still a living organism with energy requirements and recovery needs. Understood? Yes, ma'am. 30 minutes later, showered and wearing borrowed BDUs that actually fit his frame, Clark sat in the briefing room while SG-1 delivered their mission report. Hammond listened with the focused attention of a commander evaluating both tactical success and strategic implications. So. Hammond folded his hands on the table. You destroyed Baal's mining operation, liberated 36 prisoners, disabled a Tel-Tac, and left approximately 50 Jaffa warriors alive but disarmed. All with 0 friendly casualties. That's the summary, sir, O'Neill confirmed. Kent performed, well, there's really no precedent for what Kent performed. He drew fire from the entire garrison, survived sustained staff weapon bombardment, negotiated a hostage situation by coming through the roof, and brought down a gold ship mid-flight. Alone. He also showed remarkable restraint, TLC added. The Jaffa he engaged suffered injuries, but none were killed. This is tactically challenging against opponents who will show no such mercy, yet demonstrates honor. Carter had her mission data displayed on the tablet. General, the mining operation was producing approximately 200 kilograms of refined Naquata monthly. That's enough to power several Hatak vessels or construct dozens of staff weapons. We've significantly disrupted Baal's resource chain. The strategic damage exceeds the immediate tactical victory. Daniel was quieter, his academic perspective carrying weight. The prisoners confirmed what we suspected. Baal's been consolidating mining operations across multiple systems. This was one of 12 similar facilities. But more importantly, the Jaffa there saw Clark. Saw someone challenge their System Lord's forces and win. Saw someone powerful who didn't demand worship or slavery. That kind of thing spreads through the Jaffa grapevine. Could accelerate the Free Jaffa movement. Hammond turned his attention to Clark. Mr. Kent, this was your first military operation. Your assessment. Clark gathered his thoughts, trying to articulate the complex emotions of combat. It was harder than I expected, General. Not physically, the staff weapons hurt, but I could handle that. Harder emotionally. Those Jaffa were soldiers following orders, believing their God was real. Hurting them felt wrong even when necessary. And the prisoners, the fear in their eyes when I crashed through that roof. He paused. I'm not a soldier. I don't think like one. But I understand now why you work in teams. Why you train so hard. Combat isn't about power. It's about discipline. About making impossible choices under pressure. That's a mature perspective, Hammond acknowledged. Especially for someone who learned it in the field rather than through years of training. Colonel O'Neill, your evaluation. Is Mr. Kent ready for continued operations? Jack was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. He's raw. Makes tactical decisions based on instinct rather than training. Doesn't understand military protocol or proper communication discipline. But, he met Clark's eyes, he's got the one thing you can't teach. Judgment. He had the power to level that entire garrison in seconds. Could have killed every Jaffa there without breaking a sweat. Instead, he disabled, disarmed, and gave them a chance to surrender. That takes character. Real character. Then we're agreed, Hammond said. Mr. Kent has demonstrated both capability and trustworthiness in combat conditions. Which brings us to the larger question, what happens now? Major Davis appeared on the video screen, clearly having monitored the entire debrief. General Hammond, the Joint Chiefs have reviewed the mission results. The tactical success is undeniable. However, we now have confirmation that System Lord Baal knows exactly what Mr. Kent can do. Knows he's working with Earth. And will be planning accordingly. We've escalated the conflict significantly. We also sent a message, Carter countered. Earth doesn't surrender to ultimatums. We hit back. That's valuable strategically. Or we've painted an even bigger target on ourselves, Davis replied. Baal's deadline expires in, he checked his watch, 6 hours. He demanded we surrender Mr. Kent. Instead, we sent him to destroy a System Lord's facility. We need to prepare for retaliation. The briefing room door opened. An airman entered, saluting sharply. General, we're receiving an incoming transmission. Priority channel. Sir, it's Baal. He's demanding to speak with you directly. Hammond exchanged glances with his team. Put it through to the briefing room. Let's hear what the System Lord has to say. The main screen activated, and a face appeared that made Clark's enhanced vision pick up details he wished he couldn't see. Baal looked human, handsome, even, with groomed features and expensive clothing. But his eyes carried something ancient, something predatory. The Goa'uld symbiote within was thousands of years old, and it showed in the casual way he smiled. General Hammond. Baal's voice was cultured, British accented, almost pleasant. How delightful to finally speak directly. You've been quite the persistent thorn in our side. The Tauri who dare to challenge gods. We don't believe in gods, Hammond replied flatly. Especially parasites masquerading as deities. What do you want, Baal? What I want is obvious. You have something of mine. Or rather, something I intend to make mine. The warrior. The one who destroys ships with his bare hands. I see him there, sitting in your conference room. Baal's gaze fixed on Clark through the screen. Hello, farm boy. You've caused me considerable inconvenience. Clark met the Goa'uld stare steadily. You enslaved people. Claimed to be divine. I stopped that. I'd do it again. Oh, I'm certain you would. Such admirable principles. Baal's amusement was genuine. You see yourself as a hero. A liberator. How refreshingly naive. Let me educate you about this galaxy, young one. Power is all that matters. I have power, fleets, armies, technology beyond your comprehension. You have, what? Physical strength? Party tricks? You're an anomaly. An interesting anomaly, but ultimately just one being. One being who wrecked your mining operation, O'Neill interjected. Seems pretty significant to me. A mining operation I have 11 others of. Replacing it will take months, cost resources, but ultimately is manageable. What isn't manageable is the precedent. Baal leaned forward, his expression hardening. You've demonstrated that Earth will harbor weapons capable of threatening System Lord operations. That Earth will actively strike at our holdings. This cannot stand. Hammond's jaw set. So you're here to threaten invasion. Again. We've survived Apophis, Anubis, and a dozen other System Lords who thought Earth was easy prey. You'll find we're harder to conquer than we look. I'm not here to threaten invasion, General. I'm here to offer employment. The briefing room went silent. Baal's smile returned, wider now. Clark Kent. That's your name, isn't it? Listen carefully. I am not some brutish System Lord who rules through fear alone. I am a businessman. I understand incentive structures. You want to help people? Work for me. I'll give you worlds to protect. Populations to save. All you have to do is occasionally handle problematic rivals, destroy facilities I need destroyed, and acknowledge my authority. In exchange, you get purpose, protection, and the satisfaction of knowing you're making a real difference in this galaxy. You're offering me a job. Clark's tone carried disbelief. As what, your personal enforcer? As my first prime? Well, first human, technically. Koreke spoke highly of your abilities before I had him punished for losing the Teltac. You're wasted on Earth, farm boy. These humans think in terms of nations, decades. I think in terms of galaxies, millennia. Work with me, and I'll show you how to truly save people. Refuse, and I'll be forced to demonstrate why challenging a System Lord is inadvisable. Not interested. Clark's response was immediate. I'm not helping a slaver. Not now. Not ever. Baal sighed theatrically. Disappointing but expected. Very well. Since you've chosen to align yourself with Earth, let me explain the new situation. I am formally declaring Earth a hostile power. Your protected planet's treaty with the Asgard. I'm invoking a loophole, you attacked my holdings first. The Asgard cannot intervene in conflicts you initiate. Clever, wasn't it? Hammond's expression tightened. The Asgard will protect us regardless of your legal sophistry. Perhaps. Perhaps not. Thor is occupied with replicators. Freyr is managing their cloning crisis. The Asgard are stretched thin. Can they truly afford to defend one primitive world when their own civilization teeters on extinction? Baal's smile was predatory now. But I'm not unreasonable. I'll give you one more chance. 7 days. Surrender Clark Kent to me, or I will demonstrate exactly what a System Lord can do when provoked. And this time, I won't simply threaten. I'll act. The transmission ended abruptly. The briefing room remained silent for a long moment. Finally, O'Neill spoke. Well. That went great. Anyone else feel like we just made things significantly worse? Clark stared at the blank screen, guilt settling heavy in his chest. This is my fault. I brought this to your doorstep. Maybe I should. Don't, Hammond interrupted firmly. Don't finish that sentence. We don't surrender people who come to us for help. That's not who we are. Not who America is. Not who humanity is. But General, he's right about the Asgard, Carter said quietly. Thor's response time to our last emergency call was over 6 hours. If Baal attacks with multiple Hatak vessels, we might not survive long enough for rescue. TLC's voice carried grim certainty. Baal does not make empty threats. If he says he will attack in 7 days, he will. And he will bring overwhelming force. We must prepare. We need allies, Daniel suggested. The Takare, the Free Jaffa, maybe even the Talon if they'll. The Talon won't risk their neutrality, Hammond cut him off. The Takare are undermanned and overstretched. The Free Jaffa movement is still organizing. We're functionally alone. Then we make do with what we have, O'Neill said. We've got the Iris, the updated defenses, the X-302s if the prototypes are flight ready. We've survived worse odds. Not against a system lord who's been specifically preparing to counter our defenses, Carter countered. Baal's smart. He'll have analyzed our tactics, our technology. He'll come prepared for everything we've used against previous gold attacks. Clark listened to the tactical discussion spiraling into contingency planning and resource assessment. Listened to competent, experienced military personnel facing the reality that they were outgunned, outnumbered, and running out of options. Because of him. Because he'd destroyed one ship 2 decades ago and gotten the attention of a false god. There had to be another way. What if we don't wait for him to attack? Clark said quietly. Everyone turned. Hammond's expression was cautious. Explain. You said Baal is smart. Strategic. He's giving us 7 days because he expects us to spend that time fortifying Earth, calling for allies, preparing defenses. Right? Standard siege tactics, TLC confirmed. Force your enemy to prepare for attack at a location of your choosing. Control the battlefield. So we don't give him that. We take the fight somewhere he doesn't expect. To him. Clark met Hammond's eyes. You've been fighting the Goa'uld for 5 years. You must have intelligence on where Baal operates from. His strongholds. His command centers. O'Neill's eyes widened. You're suggesting we launch a preemptive strike against a System Lord's home base. With what army? With me. Clark's voice was steady. Send me through the gate with coordinates to Baal's primary facility. Let me deliver a message he can't ignore. That Earth isn't afraid. That we don't negotiate with terrorists or false gods. And that if he comes after us, he'll face someone who can fight back. That's suicide, Davis protested through the video link. Even with your abilities, you'd be walking into a fortified System Lord stronghold alone. Baal will have security systems, Jaffa armies, possibly other Goa'uld. You'll be captured or killed. Maybe. But it's better than sitting here waiting to be attacked. Better than letting innocent people on Earth get caught in an orbital bombardment. Clark looked around the table at the team that had, improbably, started to trust him. I came through your Stargate looking for answers about what I am. I still don't have those answers. But I know what I can do. Let me use it. Let me try. Hammond was quiet, considering. Then he shook his head firmly. No. I'm not sending anyone, enhanced or otherwise, on a solo suicide mission against a System Lord. That's final. Then send SG-1 with me, Clark pressed. Make it a real mission. Reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, tactical strike if opportunity presents. But at least do something proactive instead of reactive. He has a point, sir, Carter said slowly. We've always been most effective when taking the fight to the Goa'uld rather than defending. The Antarctica defense was successful, but costly. If we can disrupt Baal's operations enough to make attacking Earth too expensive. It's insane, O'Neill said. But his tone suggested he was considering it anyway. Completely insane. Walking into a System Lord's home and kicking down the door. Indeed it is, TLC agreed. Which is precisely why Baal will not expect it. The Tauri are known for defending brilliantly. Not for offensive operations of this magnitude. Hammond rubbed his temples. I need to consult with higher authority before authorizing anything this risky. In the meantime, all personnel are restricted to base. We go to condition red. All available SG teams recalled. Science divisions focus on defensive improvements. And Mr. Kent. Sir. Get some rest. Eat. Recover your energy. Because if we do authorize this insanity, you're going to need every bit of power you have. The briefing adjourned. As personnel filed out, Clark remained seated, staring at his hands. Hands that could crush steel. Hands that had just started a war. Kent. O'Neill's voice was quieter, approaching from behind. Stop beating yourself up. Baal would have found an excuse to come after Earth eventually. System Lords always do. At least this way, we've got 7 days warning and a potential tactical asset. Could be worse. How? Well, you could actually be evil. That would be significantly worse. Jack clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture that would have broken a normal human but Clark barely felt. Get some food. Sleep. Tomorrow we figure out how to punch a god in the face. Metaphorically. Possibly literally if your plan goes through. Clark managed a slight smile. Thanks, Colonel. Jack. And you're welcome. Welcome to Stargate Command, Superman. The commissary at Stargate Command never truly closed, too many personnel working round-the-clock shifts guarding a portal to the universe. At 0300 hours, Clark sat alone at a corner table, working his way through his 4th tray of food while trying not to think about the stares from the handful of airmen on night duty. He discovered that Kryptonian biology under solar charge required massive caloric intake to sustain enhanced activity. Dr. Fraser had run the numbers and estimated he'd burned through approximately 15,000 calories during the mission to P7X009. His body was compensating by demanding fuel, lots of it. Mind if I join you? Daniel Jackson stood holding his own tray, coffee and what looked like reheated pizza. The archaeologist sat without waiting for an answer, adjusting his glasses in that nervous habit Clark had already learned to recognize. Can't sleep? Daniel asked. Don't really need much. 4 hours is plenty. You. Translating mission reports and thinking about ancient civilizations usually knocks me right out. Tonight, not so much. Daniel sipped his coffee, studying Clark with academic curiosity. Can I ask you something? About your pod. The symbols on it. Sure. Though I don't know if I can help. I was an infant when I arrived. Don't remember anything about where I came from. Daniel pulled out a tablet displaying high-resolution images of the pod's exterior markings. This writing system is fascinating. It's not pictographic like ancient Egyptian or ancient, and it's not ideographic like Chinese. It appears to be a true alphabet, each symbol representing a specific sound. But the grammatical structure is unlike anything in our linguistic databases. Clark studied the images, feeling an odd disconnection. This was his heritage, his origin, and it was completely alien to him. What does it say? That's the problem, I can't translate it yet. But I'm starting to recognize patterns. This symbol here, Daniel pointed to a character that appeared repeatedly, shows up in what I think are proper names. And this one appears to be a verb marker. Give me a few weeks and I might crack the basic grammar. You sound excited about that. Ancient languages are my specialty. And this, Daniel gestured at the tablet, this could be evidence of a civilization that might predate the ancients themselves. Do you understand what that means? The ancients built the Stargates millions of years ago. They were the first evolution. But if your people existed before them, or parallel to them in some other galaxy. He trailed off, eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. My people enslaved worlds like the Goa'uld. What? No. Nothing suggests that. From what little we can tell from the pod's technology, your civilization was incredibly advanced but not expansionist. The pod itself is a marvel, self-contained life support, faster-than-light capability, and enough automation to pilot itself through a Stargate wormhole. That's technology the ancients never achieved. Or at least never applied in that specific way. Clark absorbed that, trying to imagine the civilization that had built his escape pod. Why send an infant through a Stargate? That seems desperate, Daniel finished quietly. Yes. It does. My theory? Your world faced some kind of catastrophic event. They had the technology to save one child, maybe more, maybe you weren't alone, and they sent you through the gate network hoping you'd find a better life. It's actually quite tragic when you think about it. I try not to. Clark pushed his empty tray away. Thinking about parents I never knew, a world I'll never see, a civilization that might not even exist anymore, it doesn't help. I can't change where I came from. Just what I do with what I am. That's very pragmatic. Daniel's archaeologist instincts shifted to the anthropological. How did your adopted parents handle raising a child with your abilities? That couldn't have been easy. Clark smiled slightly, remembering. They were farmers on a world that had been forgotten by the Goa'uld centuries ago. Simple people. Good people. When they found me in that pod, they could have turned me over to the village elders, let someone else deal with the strange alien child. Instead, they took me home. Raised me as their son. They knew what you were. They figured it out pretty quick when I was 3 and accidentally lifted a plow horse. Mom said I looked so shocked when the animal started floating that she couldn't be mad. Dad built a barn for me to practice in, somewhere I could test my limits without accidentally hurting anyone. They taught me to be careful. To think before acting. To remember that being different didn't make me better, just different. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. Sounds like they gave you something more valuable than any ancient technology, perspective. A moral framework to operate from. The Goa'uld have power but no ethics. The ancients had knowledge but abandoned responsibility. Your parents taught you that power requires accountability. They taught me a lot of things. Clark's expression shadowed. I wish I could have told them goodbye before SG-1 brought me here. They're going to worry. We can send a message back through the gate once this situation with Baal resolves. Let them know you're safe. If it resolves. If Earth survives. Clark met Daniel's eyes. I brought this threat to your doorstep. Baal wouldn't be targeting Earth if I hadn't destroyed that scout ship. If I hadn't come here looking for answers. That's not how Jack would see it. Or TLC. Or any of us, really. Daniel leaned forward earnestly. Clark, we've been at war with the Goa'uld since we reopened the Stargate. Every mission we run, every world we liberate, every alliance we forge, it all increases the threat to Earth. We accept that risk because the alternative is letting the galaxy remain enslaved. You're not bringing danger we weren't already facing. You're just accelerating the timeline. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. Because acceleration also means opportunity. Daniel's academic enthusiasm was returning. Baal is reacting emotionally, pride, anger at having his operations disrupted. System Lords are notoriously egotistical. That makes them predictable. If we can exploit that predictability, turn his focus on you into a tactical advantage. We might survive this. Clark finished the thought. That's what the briefing tomorrow is about, isn't it? Planning how to use me as bait. Planning how to work as a team, Daniel corrected gently. That's what we do. Jack's the tactical leader, Sam's the scientific genius, TLC brings decades of Jaffa military experience, and I handle the cultural and historical context. Together, we're effective. Add you to that equation, your abilities, your perspective, your willingness to put others first, and we might be able to do something unprecedented. Like storming a System Lord's fortress. Like showing the Goa'uld that humanity, in all its forms, earthborn or otherwise, is done being prey. Daniel stood, collecting his tray. Get some rest, Clark. Real rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. After Daniel left, Clark sat alone with his thoughts. Around him, Stargate Command hummed with activity, personnel preparing for potential invasion, scientists analyzing Goa'uld technology, soldiers training for scenarios they hoped would never occur. All because he'd come looking for answers. He made his way back to the quarters they'd assigned him, a small room with a bed, desk, and viewport that looked out into the gate room. He could see the Stargate from here, that massive ring that connected worlds, that had brought him to Earth 20 years late. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of a world he'd never seen. Red skies. Twin moons. Buildings that touched the clouds. And a symbol, the S-shield from his pod, everywhere. On buildings, clothing, vehicles. A civilization's mark. His civilization. His people. All gone now, probably. Lost to whatever catastrophe had forced them to send an infant through the Stargate with nothing but hope and a blanket. Clark woke at 0600 to alarms blaring through the facility. Unscheduled off-world activation. The announcement echoed through speakers. All personnel to defensive stations. This is not a drill. He was in the corridor in seconds, enhanced speed carrying him to the gate room before most personnel had finished responding. The iris was closed, and something was hammering against it from the other side, repeated massive impacts that made the reinforced metal ring like a gong. Hammond stood in the control room, face grim. Report. IDC code is Takare, the gate technician called out. But the signal's corrupted. I can't verify authenticity. Keep the iris closed, Hammond ordered. Audio only. Let's hear what they have to say. The impact stopped. A voice came through, female, strained, speaking in that distinctive Takare dual tone. This is Anise of the Takare High Council. We require immediate sanctuary. Our base is compromised. Baal's forces are. The transmission dissolved into weapons fire and screaming. Open the iris. Hammond commanded. Get them through now. The iris spiraled open. 3 figures stumbled through the event horizon, 2 in Takare clothing, 1 in Jaffa armor. All 3 were wounded, scorched by staff weapon fire. The third person through collapsed immediately. Medical teams rushed forward as the Stargate shut down behind them. Clark watched from the observation level as Dr. Fraser began emergency treatment. General Hammond. The lead Takare, Anise, apparently, struggled to remain standing despite a severe leg wound. Baal has escalated his operations. He's hunting Takare operatives across the galaxy. Our base at Ravenna was attacked by 3 Hatak vessels. We barely escaped through the gate before, she swayed, caught herself. You must understand. Baal isn't just targeting you. He's declaring war on anyone who might ally with Earth. The Takare. The Free Jaffa. Any System Lord who might oppose him. He's consolidating power for a massive offensive. Hammond's expression tightened. How long? Days. Perhaps hours. He's moving faster than any System Lord in recorded history. Anisa's eyes, one host, one symbiote, fixed on Clark standing in the observation area. And he's doing it because of him. The warrior who can't be killed. Baal sees him as either the ultimate prize or the ultimate threat. He won't rest until he possesses or destroys what Earth harbors. Clark descended to the gate room, approaching carefully. I'm sorry for what happened to your people. If there's anything I can do. There is. Anisa's gaze was calculating despite her injuries. Let us study you. Your biology, your abilities. The Takare have been fighting the Goa'uld for 2,000 years. We understand their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. If we can determine how your powers function, we might be able to replicate them. Or at least develop defenses against Goa'uld weapons that could save countless lives. I've already been studied, Clark said carefully. Dr. Fraser has all my medical data. Tauri medical science is primitive compared to Takare knowledge, Anise replied bluntly. No offense intended to your doctor. But we have access to Goa'uld sarcophagus technology, ancient healing devices, 2 millennia of genetic research. We can learn things about you that Earth's scientists couldn't discover in decades. Hammond intervened. That's a discussion for later. Right now, you need medical attention and debriefing. Mr. Kent, return to quarters. SG-1, briefing room in 20 minutes. As personnel dispersed to manage the Takare refugees, Clark caught O'Neill's eye. The colonel gestured subtly toward the briefing room, a clear, "we need to talk," signal. 20 minutes later, SG-1 plus Clark assembled while the Takare received medical treatment one floor down. Situations changed, Hammond began without preamble. Baal isn't just threatening Earth anymore. He's launching a coordinated campaign against our potential allies. The Takare lost their base. We're receiving reports through the Gate network that free Jaffa cells are being systematically hunted. 3 minor system lords who might have stayed neutral have suddenly pledged loyalty to Baal. He's isolating us. Classic strategy, Carter noted. Remove our support network before the main assault. If we have no allies to call on, we stand alone against his full military force. Which brings us back to the question of offensive action, O'Neill said. Sitting here waiting to be crushed isn't working. Baal's moving too fast. We need to disrupt his operations. Hit back hard enough to make him reconsider. TLC nodded. The time for defensive preparation has passed. We must take the initiative. Agreed. Hammond looked at Clark. Mr. Kent, you proposed striking at Baal directly. We have intelligence on his primary stronghold, a fortress world called Tartarus. Heavily defended, strategically critical, and where Baal himself resides when he's not traveling his domain. It's also a tactical nightmare. Multiple Hatak vessels in orbit, ground-to-space defenses, Jaffa legions numbering in the thousands. Sounds like exactly the place we need to hit, O'Neill said. Maximum chaos, maximum message sent. It's suicide, Daniel protested. We'd need an army to assault Tartarus successfully. We have something better than an army. Carter looked at Clark. We have someone who can fly through space. Survive staff weapon bombardment, and disable ships single-handedly. If we can get him to Tartarus, use him as a strategic asset rather than just a soldier. You're talking about treating him like a weapon, Daniel interrupted. He's a person, not a cruise missile. A person who volunteered for exactly this, Clark reminded him. Daniel, you said earlier that together, SG-1 is effective. Let me be part of that team. Use my abilities where they make sense. I can draw fire, create openings, handle threats that would be suicide for normal soldiers. That's what I'm here for. Hammond was silent for a long moment, weighing impossible odds against desperate necessity. Finally, he straightened. Colonel O'Neill, you're authorized to plan and execute an assault on Tartarus. Primary objective, disrupt Baal's command structure enough to delay his offensive against Earth. Secondary objective, demonstrate that Earth and its allies can strike at the heart of gold power. You'll have full access to our intelligence on Baal's defenses, Takare cooperation if they're willing, and whatever resources you need. Mission window is 48 hours. 2 days to plan an assault on a System Lord's home world, Jack said. Great. No pressure. You'll also have the Prometheus, Hammond added. She's not fully operational, but she can fly and fight. Captain Pendergast will provide orbital support. Carter's eyes widened. Sir, the Prometheus has never been tested in real combat conditions. Neither has an invulnerable alien working with SG-1, Hammond countered. We're improvising with everything we have. Make it work. Dismissed. As the team filed out to begin planning, Clark remained behind. General. Thank you. For trusting me. Don't thank me yet, son. If this plan fails, we might all be dead or enslaved in 3 days. And if it succeeds, we'll have declared open war on one of the most powerful system lords in the galaxy. Either way, there's no going back. I understand. I hope you do. Because you're about to face something no amount of power can prepare you for, the full military might of a civilization that's been enslaving galaxies for thousands of years. Your invulnerability might keep you alive. But alive and victorious are two very different things. Clark nodded, absorbing the weight of that statement. Then he headed toward the planning room where SG-1 was already pulling up schematics of Tartarus. Time to figure out how an alien with superpowers and 4 determined humans could punch a god in the face. Literally. The planning room at Stargate Command had been transformed into a tactical war room. Holographic displays showed Tartarus from every angle, orbital defenses, ground installations, patrol patterns. SG-1 surrounded the table with the focused intensity of soldiers planning an impossible mission. Clark stood to the side, absorbing information faster than his teammates realized. Tartarus is a fortress moon orbiting a gas giant, Carter explained, manipulating the holographic display. 3 HOTAC vessels in permanent orbital defense. Ground-based staff cannon emplacements covering every approach vector. The fortress itself is built into the moon's surface, approximately 60 levels deep, housing Baal's throne room, Jaffa barracks, weapons manufacturing, and his personal laboratories. Laboratories? Daniel asked with concern. What kind of laboratories? The kind where Gould experiment on humans, TLC said grimly. Baal is known for his scientific curiosity. He seeks to understand and replicate technology, biology, anything that might grant advantage. If he captures Clark, those laboratories are where the interrogation would occur. Clark studied the fortress schematics. How do we get past the orbital defenses? We don't. Not conventionally. O'Neill zoomed in on the HOTAC positions. Those motherships have sensors that'll detect anything approaching, Prometheus included. We'd be blown out of space before we got close enough to matter. Unless we use the gate, Daniel suggested. There has to be a Stargate on Tartarus. We dial in, come through inside the fortress, bypass the orbital defenses entirely. Carter shook her head. Baal will have the gate under heavy guard. Probably in a secured chamber with the Iris equivalent always active. We'd materialize directly into a kill zone. What about a space gate? Clark asked. The way I arrived as an infant, through an active wormhole in space. 4 sets of eyes turned to him with varying degrees of surprise. That's actually brilliant, Carter said slowly. Space gates exist throughout the galaxy, floating in predetermined orbital positions. If we could dial one near Tartarus, establish a wormhole in space rather than on the surface. We could bypass both the orbital defenses and the fortress security, O'Neill finished. Come through in space, use the Prometheus to provide covering fire, and Clark flies down to the surface while we create chaos. I like it. There's a space gate approximately 2 million kilometers from Tartarus, Carter confirmed, pulling up astrogation data. Well within flight range for Clark if he can survive vacuum. All eyes turned to Clark again. He considered the question carefully. I've never tried breathing vacuum. But I don't strictly need to breathe, more like my body expects to but can function without it for extended periods. The cold won't bother me. The radiation from space might actually help, more solar energy from unfiltered starlight. I think I can make it. You think? Daniel's concern was palpable. Clark, we're talking about hard vacuum. Zero pressure. Temperatures near absolute zero in shadow. Cosmic radiation. You could die. Or I could succeed. Only one way to find out. Clark met their skeptical looks with quiet determination. I've spent 20 years being careful, never pushing my limits because it was dangerous. But this is what I'm built for. What my biology is designed to handle. I have to try. TLC inclined his head respectfully. Spoken as a true warrior. Okay, so Space Boy can maybe survive vacuum, O'Neill said. That gets him to the fortress. Then what? He knocks on the door and asks Baal to surrender. No. Then I create the distraction to end all distractions. Clark pointed to the fortress schematic. You said Baal's throne room is here, 60 levels down. If I can reach it, confront him directly, force him to respond. Every Jaffa in that fortress will converge on your position, TLC completed. Leaving other areas vulnerable. Exactly. While Baal focuses on me, SG-1 infiltrates through, where? Clark looked to the team. Carter studied the schematics. The weapons manufacturing levels. 35 levels down, away from the throne room. If we can sabotage his production facilities, we cripple his ability to equip the forces he's gathering for the Earth assault. Plus, weapons labs mean computers. I might be able to hack into Baal's network, pull intelligence on his troop movements, fleet positions. And I can look for any prisoners, Daniel added. Baal experiments on humans. If there are test subjects still alive in those laboratories, we rescue who we can, O'Neill agreed. But the primary mission is sabotage and intelligence. We're not equipped for large-scale prisoner liberation. Clear. Daniel nodded reluctantly. Clear. There's still the matter of extraction, TLC pointed out. Even if we succeed in our objectives, escaping a fortress under high alert with 3 Hatak vessels hunting us will be challenging. The Prometheus can provide cover, Carter suggested. But she's not equipped for prolonged combat against multiple motherships. We'd need to move fast. What if I disabled the Hatak vessels? Clark offered. Same as I did with the Teltac. Fly to each one, tear through their hulls, force them to divert resources to damage control instead of pursuit. That's asking you to disable 3 capital ships while under fire from their entire fighter complements and weapons batteries, Carter said. The power output alone. I'll have absorbed energy from 2 stars on the way through space, plus whatever radiation the gas giant's magnetosphere generates. I'll be charged. Clark's confidence wasn't arrogance, it was tactical assessment. And even if I can't disable all 3, I can damage them enough to buy us time. O'Neill studied Clark for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. Here's the plan. We dial the space gate from Earth, Prometheus goes through with SG-1 aboard. Clark goes through separately, heads directly for the fortress while we provide orbital distraction. He confronts Baal, draws every Jaffa in the place to the throne room. We infiltrate during the chaos, sabotage weapons production, grab intel, locate any prisoners. Then Clark fights his way out, meets us at Extraction Point Alpha, he marked a location on the moon's surface, and we all gate back through the space gate before Baal knows what hit him. It's insane, Daniel muttered. It's what we have, O'Neill countered. Unless you've got a better idea. Silence around the table. They all knew this was the only play that had any chance of success. We brief Hammond in 2 hours, Jack decided. Carter, work with the Takari, see if Anise can provide any additional intelligence on Tartarus defenses. TLC, coordinate with the armory. Get us every piece of gold tech we've captured that might be useful. Daniel, research anything in the ancient database about Tartarus. Maybe the ancients left notes on vulnerabilities. And Clark. Yes. Go see Dr. Fraser. Get a full medical workup. If you're going into vacuum, I want her monitoring every vital sign. If something goes wrong, we need to know immediately. The team dispersed to their assignments. Clark headed toward the infirmary, where he found Dr. Fraser treating the last of the Takare refugees. Anise sat on an examination table, leg bandaged, dual-toned voice discussing gold technology with professional detachment. Mr. Kent, Fraser called out. I was wondering when you'd show up. Rumor is you're planning to fly through space. Please tell me that's just base gossip. I wish I could. Clark approached cautiously. How are the Takare? Physically, they'll recover. Mentally, she glanced at Anise, they've lost their base, colleagues, decades of intelligence work. That kind of loss doesn't heal quickly. Anissa's expression was calculating as she studied Clark. Dr. Fraser tells me you volunteer to test the limits of your biology. Admirable. Or foolish. I haven't decided which. Probably both, Clark admitted. You have experience with extreme environments. Vacuum survival. The TOC-RA have been operating in space for centuries. We understand the physiological challenges. Anisse slid off the examination table, testing her injured leg. But our survival depends on technology, pressure suits, oxygen supplies, thermal regulation. You propose to survive through biology alone. That suggests your cellular structure is fundamentally different from any life form we've encountered. Different how? That's what I'd like to determine. If you'll permit examination, not the primitive scans your doctor has conducted, but deep cellular analysis using TOC-RA technology. We could learn how your body processes energy, how it maintains cohesion in hostile environments. Knowledge that might help us develop better protection for operatives in the field. Clark hesitated. Something about Anissa's intensity felt off, less academic curiosity and more strategic calculation. What exactly would this examination involve? Blood samples. Tissue biopsies. Exposure to various forms of radiation and energy to map your absorption patterns. Possibly minor surgical procedures to examine internal structures. Anissa's tone was clinical. All non-invasive and carefully controlled. You would experience no permanent damage. He would experience what amounts to vivisection, Fraser interrupted sharply. Anisse, we've had this conversation. Mr. Kent is a person, not a research specimen. Any testing will follow proper medical ethics and informed consent protocols. Of course. Anissa's agreement came too quickly. I meant no disrespect. The TOC-RA simply believe that understanding his abilities could save thousands of lives. Surely that's worth some discomfort. That's his decision to make, not yours. Fraser positioned herself subtly between Anisse and Clark. And right now, his medical priority is ensuring he can survive vacuum exposure for the upcoming mission. Everything else is secondary. Clark appreciated the protection, even though he didn't strictly need it. Dr. Fraser's right. After the mission, if the TOC-RA still want to study me, we can discuss parameters. But right now, I need to focus on not dying in space. Anisse inclined her head, though her eyes showed calculation. As you wish. But know that the offer remains open. The TOC-RA could help you understand what you are, Clark Kent. We have resources Earth lacks. Access to ancient technology, gold biological databases. We could give you the answers you came through that Stargate seeking. Later, Clark said firmly. Right now, I need to prepare. After Anisse departed, Fraser began her examination with renewed intensity. I don't trust her. The TOC-RA are allies, but they're also operatives who've spent 2,000 years prioritizing intelligence gathering over individual welfare. You're an unprecedented biological specimen to them. Be careful. I will. Clark submitted to the scans, feeling the medical equipment struggle to penetrate his enhanced cellular density. Doc, honestly, what are my chances in vacuum? Fraser was quiet for a moment, reviewing data. Your cellular structure is incredibly resilient. Your body seems to run on solar energy at a fundamental level, which means radiation exposure in space might actually benefit you. You don't strictly require oxygen, your cells can function anaerobically for extended periods. Temperature extremes don't affect you significantly. Honestly? She met his eyes. I think you'll survive. But I also think it's going to hurt. A lot. Your body will be under stress it's never experienced. You'll be pushing limits you don't know you have. And if I'm wrong about your capabilities, you'll die. Alone. In the vacuum of space. With no way to rescue you. That's reassuring. I'm not here to reassure you. I'm here to give you medical facts so you can make informed decisions. She attached monitoring leads to his chest, each one requiring him to lower his invulnerability deliberately. These will transmit your vitals back to the Prometheus. If your heart stops, your brain activity ceases, or your cellular integrity starts failing, we'll know. Not that we can do much about it at 2 million kilometers distance. Still better than flying blind. Fraser finished the setup and stepped back. Clark, why are you doing this? You could dial the gate, go back to your farming world, live a safe, quiet life. Instead, you're volunteering for a suicide mission against a false god. Why? Clark considered the question while feeling the monitoring equipment's subtle weight. Because I can. Because standing by while people suffer when you have the power to help, that's not living, that's just existing. My parents taught me that power is only meaningful if you use it responsibly. Earth is facing invasion because of me. The Takare lost their base because Baal wants me. People I've never met are in danger because I destroyed one ship months ago. I can't undo that. But I can face it. Try to make it right. That's a lot of responsibility for one person. Maybe. But I'm not really one person, am I? I'm an alien with abilities that make me functionally invulnerable. If I don't take responsibility for what that means, for the consequences it creates, then what's the point of having power at all? Fraser smiled slightly. You know what? I think you're going to survive this mission. Not because your biology is special. Because you're too stubborn and too genuinely decent to die in space. The universe tends to reward people like that. Is that a medical opinion? That's a human opinion. Which is what you are, Clark. Regardless of biology or origin. You're human in the ways that matter. Before Clark could respond, the intercom activated. SG-1 and Mr. Kent to the briefing room. Mission authorization received. Gate activation in 90 minutes. This was it. The point of no return. Clark left the infirmary feeling the weight of monitoring equipment, borrowed BDUs, and impossible expectations. He'd come through the Stargate looking for answers about what he was. Instead, he was about to fly through the vacuum of space to punch a System Lord in his own throne room. Somewhere in the universe, his unknown parents had sent their infant son through a portal hoping he'd find a better life. Clark wondered if this was what they'd imagined. If they'd be proud or horrified by what their last son was about to do. He'd probably never know. But he could honor their sacrifice by using what they'd given him, this impossible biology, this incredible power, to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Even if it killed him. Which, admittedly, it very well might. The briefing room door opened. SG-1 looked up from final preparations. TLC offered a warrior's nod. Daniel worried silently behind his glasses. Carter assessed him with scientific concern. And O'Neill studied him with that particular expression of someone who'd led people into danger too many times but would do it again because it needed doing. You ready for this, farm boy? Jack asked. Clark thought about P3X774, where farmers had raised him. About parents who taught him responsibility. About refugees he'd freed from gold slavery. About an entire planet, Earth, facing invasion because a System Lord wanted what Clark could do. Ready as I'll ever be, Colonel. Good. Because the Pentagon just authorized the operation. We're going to Tartarus. We're going to make Baal regret threatening Earth. And we're going to show the gold that humanity, no matter where we're from or what we can do, doesn't surrender to false gods. O'Neill stood, and the rest of SG-1 followed. Let's go punch a god in the face. They headed toward the gate room together. A team. An alien with superpowers. A colonel with dry humor and tactical brilliance. A scientist who understood physics at fundamental levels. An archaeologist who saw the human cost in ancient conflicts. And a Jaffa warrior who'd chosen freedom over slavery. Behind them, the Stargate waited. Ahead, a fortress moon and a system lord who'd never faced anything like what was coming. The assault on Tartarus was about to begin. The Stargate activation sequence echoed through the gate room with mechanical precision. Chevron after chevron locked, coordinates for a space gate 2 million kilometers from a fortress moon where a false god waited. SG-1 stood ready in full tactical gear. The Prometheus crew had already embarked, the Earth's first capital ship humming with barely tested systems and desperate hope. Clark stood apart, wearing only the borrowed BDUs and the monitoring equipment Fraser had insisted on. No tactical vest, it would only burn away in atmospheric re-entry. No weapons, his body was the weapon. No backup, because in vacuum, there was no backup. General Hammond descended from the control room, his expression carrying the weight of sending people into danger. SG-1, this is officially the most ambitious operation in Stargate Command history. You're assaulting a System Lord's primary stronghold with 4 people and an untested warship. By all conventional military logic, this should be suicide. Conventional logic hasn't worked so well against the Goa'uld, O'Neill replied. Figured we'd try unconventional. Indeed. Hammond turned to Clark. Mr. Kent, you've been with us less than a week. In that time, you've proven yourself in combat, shown remarkable restraint under pressure, and volunteered for something that might kill you. That's more than most soldiers accomplish in a career. If you survive this, when you survive this, you'll have earned a place in this program. Permanently, if you want it. Thank you, General. I'll do my best to survive. See that you do. Earth needs more people willing to stand against tyranny. Especially people who can fly. Hammond stepped back. Godspeed, people. And remember, if this goes sideways, abort immediately. We're not losing Earth's flagship team for one strike. The wormhole stabilized into shimmering blue infinity. Somewhere on the other side, a space gate waited in the darkness between stars. O'Neill led the way through. Carter followed. Daniel next. TLC gestured for Clark to precede him, tactical positioning maintained even now. Clark stepped into the event horizon and felt the now familiar sensation of molecular dissolution. But this time was different. He emerged not into atmosphere and gravity, but into the absolute cold and silence of space. His first conscious thought, I can't breathe. His second, I don't need to. His body screamed for oxygen that wasn't there. His lungs convulsed, trying to pull in atmosphere from vacuum. But his Kryptonian cells, saturated with solar energy, simply adapted. Shifted from aerobic to anaerobic metabolism. Sealed his airways instinctively. Pressurized his internal fluids to prevent them from boiling in zero atmosphere. The pain was extraordinary, every cell reorganizing for survival, every system compensating for hostile conditions. But it was working. He was alive in hard vacuum. Clark opened his eyes, no need to blink without atmosphere to dry them, and saw infinity. Space. Real space. Not filtered through atmosphere or viewed from a planet's surface, but the raw universe in all its terrible beauty. Stars burned with impossible clarity. The gas giant Tartarus orbited dominated half his vision, bands of crimson and gold swirling in eternal storm. And there, a silver crescent against the giant's face, the fortress moon. Clark, respond if you can hear me. Carter's voice came through the monitoring equipment, transmitted via subspace. Your vitals just spiked massively, but they're stabilizing. Are you functional? He tried to speak, realized sound didn't work in vacuum, and focused on the communication equipment. The subspace transmitter picked up neural impulses and converted them to speech, technology he didn't understand but was grateful for. I'm alive. It hurts, but I'm functional. Where's the Prometheus? 200 kilometers to your left. We're holding position, letting you get acclimatized before we proceed. Clark turned, movement and vacuum required using flight ability consciously, no air resistance to push against, and saw Earth's warship. The Prometheus was beautiful in a utilitarian way, all angles and purpose, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. A statement that humanity was done being prey. He flew toward it, movement feeling strange without air resistance. His flight ability worked by negating gravity and inertia at a fundamental level, no atmosphere required. But without visual references or wind resistance, spatial orientation was challenging. How are you managing movement? Carter's scientific curiosity came through even in combat conditions. There's no thrust signature, no expelled mass. You're violating conservation of momentum. Tell me about it later, O'Neill interrupted. Right now, we need to move. Tartarus is 2 million clicks away. Clark, can you make that distance? Clark looked toward the distant moon, felt the double suns of this system feeding his cells with unfiltered radiation, stronger than anything he'd absorbed on Earth or P3X009. Power flooded through him, almost overwhelming in intensity. I can make it. Fast. Then go. Hit Baal hard. Make him pay attention. We'll be 45 minutes behind you, the Prometheus isn't built for speed. Can you survive that long alone? Clark thought about the young woman he'd saved from execution. About prisoners in Baal's laboratories. About Earth-facing invasion. About parents who'd sent their infant son through a portal hoping he'd find something better than death. I can survive. See you at extraction point Alpha. He accelerated. Without air resistance, without friction, his flight ability pushed him to velocities that would have torn a normal human apart. Stars streaked past. The gas giant grew from crescent to massive sphere. The fortress moon resolved from silver point to actual world, cratered surface, gold structures glittering like jewels, and 3 Hatak vessels hanging in orbit like mechanical gods. Clark had crossed 2 million kilometers in under 8 minutes. The Hatak vessels detected him immediately, sensors tracking an impossible object moving at relativistic speeds without any engine signature. Weapons ports opened. Death gliders launched like angry insects. And someone aboard those ships was undoubtedly reporting to Baal that an unidentified hostile was approaching at speeds that shouldn't exist. Good. That was the point. Clark angled his approach toward the nearest Hatak, accelerating further. The mothership's main weapons opened fire, plasma cannons designed to crack planetary shields, directed at a single flying figure. The energy bolts were visible in vacuum as superheated particles, moving at a fraction of light speed. Fast. But not faster than Clark's enhanced perception. He dodged, weaving between plasma bolts with fighter pilot precision. Return fire intensified, the Hatak adjusting tactics, creating kill zones instead of targeted shots. He took 3 direct hits, massive impacts that would have vaporized normal matter, and felt the energy transfer into his cells as heat and force. It hurt. God, it hurt. Like being hit by lightning while on fire. But his Kryptonian biology absorbed the energy, stored it, used it. He was actually getting stronger from their attacks. Clark slammed into the Hatak's hull at full velocity. The impact cratered the pyramid ship's gold-plated armor, drove through outer hull, inner decking, and 3 levels of Jaffa barracks before his momentum arrested. Klaxons blared. Atmosphere vented explosively. Warriors scrambled for breathing apparatus and weapons. Clark grabbed structural supports and pulled, tearing a 30-foot gash in the ship's superstructure. More atmosphere vented. The Hatak listed as internal systems failed. But the ship was still functional, still dangerous. He flew through the breach into the vessel's heart, a massive reactor chamber where Naquata cores powered the entire ship. Jaffa opened fire with staff weapons at point-blank range. The impacts drove him backward but didn't stop him. Clark tore into the reactor housing, not to destroy it, that would kill everyone aboard, but to disable it. Ripped out control crystals. Crushed power relays. Yanked out fuel rod assemblies and hurled them into space through the hull breach. The reactor died with a whine of failing systems. Emergency power kicked in, barely enough to sustain life support. The Hatak was crippled, dead in space, no longer a threat. Clark flew back through the breach, leaving panicking Jaffa behind, and accelerated toward the second mothership. His approach was visible now, every sensor in the system tracking the impossible warrior. The second Hatak was ready, its shields raised, weapons batteries fully charged. He hit the shield at full speed and bounced off. The energy barrier held, ancient derived technology that could withstand orbital bombardment. Clark's impact had caused ripples, stress fractures in the field geometry, but it hadn't penetrated. So he hit it again. And again. And again. Each impact weakened the shield incrementally, draining its power reserves. The Hatak fired everything it had at point-blank range, plasma cannons, staff cannons, even tried ramming him with deployed death gliders. Clark took the hits, absorbed the energy, and kept hammering at the shield with superhuman persistence. The barrier failed on the 47th impact. Clark punched through, grabbed the outer hull, and began tearing the pyramid ship apart piece by piece. Armor plating ripped free in his hands. Weapon batteries crumpled like foil. Structural supports bent and snapped. This ship, he didn't disable gently. He wrecked it. Methodically. Making it clear that Earth's protector was not someone to threaten. That Baal's military might was vulnerable. That false gods bled when you hit them hard enough. The second Hatak drifted, crippled beyond repair. The third Hatak, learning from its companion's fate, retreated to high orbit and began charging its main weapon, a devastating plasma lance that required minutes to power but could crack continents. Clark didn't give them those minutes. He flew straight at the retreating ship, pushing his speed to the absolute limit. The vacuum provided no resistance. His Kryptonian cells, gorged on unfiltered solar radiation and absorbed weapons fire, burned with more power than he'd ever felt. He was practically glowing with stored energy. He struck the third Hatak like a meteor. The impact punched completely through the pyramid ship, entered the bow, exited the stern, leaving a perfectly Clark-shaped hole in the superstructure. The ship shuddered, listed, and began breaking apart as structural integrity failed catastrophically. Through it all, Clark could hear Carter's voice over the monitoring link. "I'm reading 3 Hatak motherships disabled or destroyed. Tartarus orbital defenses are in chaos. Clark, you just single-handedly eliminated a System Lord space fleet. Are you okay?" Was he okay? Clark assessed himself while floating in the debris field of gold ships. His borrowed BDUs were gone, burned away by plasma fire and atmospheric re-entry. The monitoring equipment was partially melted but still functional. His body was unmarked, every wound healed, every burn regenerated. But he was tired. Not physically exhausted, his cells were still bursting with energy. Mentally. Emotionally. He'd just destroyed 3 ships, displaced hundreds of Jaffa crews into lifeboats, and proven he could wage one-man war against System Lords. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like something crossing a line. "I'm functional. Approaching the fortress now. Baal's probably waiting for me. Prometheus is 15 minutes out. We'll begin our infiltration as soon as you've got Baal's attention. Good luck, Clark." He descended toward the fortress moon, feeling gravity well pull at him for the first time since emerging in space. The surface was pockmarked with weapons installations, staff cannons tracking his approach, preparing to fire. He ignored them, accelerating through the thin atmosphere, aiming directly for the massive complex of gold architecture at the fortress center. Somewhere in those depths, 60 levels down, a System Lord sat on a throne and claimed divinity. Time to disabuse him of that notion. Clark didn't slow. Didn't hesitate. He struck the fortress surface at terminal velocity and kept going, through metal, through rock, through 60 levels of corridors and chambers and surprised Jaffa, until he burst into a throne room designed to intimidate. Gold everywhere. Statues of false gods. A throne that elevated its occupant above supplicants. And sitting there, looking more annoyed than frightened, was Baal. The System Lord regarded Clark with calculating eyes, glowing with the gold symbiote's presence. His host body was handsome, middle-aged, wearing armor that was more ceremonial than practical. But his expression carried millennia of experience ruling through terror. "So," Baal said in that cultured accent. "The farm boy arrives. Naked, covered in debris, and remarkably alive despite what should have been lethal vacuum exposure. You've destroyed 3 of my motherships, disrupted my operations, and generally made yourself a tremendous nuisance." Clark floated 3 feet off the ground, fists clenched, feeling the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. "I'm here to deliver a message. Leave Earth alone. Leave the Takare alone. Leave everyone who opposes you alone. Or I'll tear down every fortress you own, destroy every ship in your fleet, and prove to the galaxy that you're not a god. You're just a parasite who stole someone's body." Baal smiled. It wasn't pleasant. "Oh, my dear boy. You have no idea what you've just walked into." The throne room doors opened. 100 Jaffa warriors flooded in, weapons raised. Koreke stood among them, the first prime's expression promising vengeance. And behind them, more warriors. Hundreds. Thousands. The entire fortress garrison, converging on one target. Clark had wanted Baal's attention. He'd gotten it. Now came the hard part. Surviving what happened next. The throne room erupted in synchronized violence. 200 staff weapons fired simultaneously, a concentrated barrage of plasma that would have atomized a Hotax bridge. The energy bolts converged on Clark from every angle, creating a sphere of superheated death with him at the center. He took the hits. Felt each impact like a hammer blow wrapped in lightning. His invulnerability absorbed the kinetic force, but the thermal energy transferred through, burning across his skin, overwhelming his cellular regeneration for precious seconds. Pain receptors screamed. His vision whited out. But he stayed conscious. Stayed standing. And when the barrage finally ceased, weapons overheating, Jaffa needing to recharge, Clark remained. Smoking. Scorched. Angry. "Is that your best?" His voice echoed through the throne room with Kryptonian lungs that could shout across continents. Because Earth's soldiers hit harder. Baal's smile faded into calculation. "Koreke. Karakesh. Now." The first prime and 4 other gold-marked warriors raised their hands, ribbon devices gleaming on their palms. 5 beams of concentrated telekinetic force struck Clark simultaneously. Not trying to hurt him. Trying to contain him. The pressure was immense. Ancient technology channeling the willpower of gold symbiotes, multiplied through Naquata-enhanced biology, focused into directed force. Clark felt invisible hands crushing inward from all sides, compressing his body, restricting movement. He pushed back. Solar energy, stored in every cell from spaceflight and weapons fire, channeled through Kryptonian muscle density. He forced his arms outward against the telekinetic grip. Slowly. Inch by agonizing inch. The Karakesh wielders strained, symbiotes glowing through their host's eyes with effort. Metal groaned. Stone cracked. The very air pressure in the throne room distorted as 2 forms of impossible force contested for dominance. Clark broke free. The telekinetic grip shattered. Feedback rippled through the Karakesh, stunning their wielders. Clark surged forward, crossing 30 feet in a blur, and disarmed Koreke with surgical precision, crushing the ribbon device into scrap without harming the Jaffa wearing it. "I don't want to kill you," Clark said, addressing the hundreds of warriors surrounding him. "You're slaves. Brainwashed. But I will defend myself. Stand down." Koreke's response was to draw a curved blade and charge. Clark caught the sword mid-swing, snapped it in half, and gently pushed the first prime aside, enough force to knock him unconscious but not enough to cause permanent injury. The other Jaffa hesitated. They just watched their first prime defeated in seconds. Watched weapons fail. Watched technology fail. Doubt flickered across faces trained from childhood to never question. Baal stood from his throne, clapping slowly. Impressive. Truly impressive. You're stronger than I anticipated. More resilient. But strength alone doesn't win wars, farm boy. Strategy does. And you've walked into a trap of your own making. Clark's enhanced hearing picked up what Baal meant a half-second before it activated, massive machinery engaging below the throne room. The floor beneath him irised open, revealing a chamber flooded with harsh yellow light. Not sunlight. Something artificial. Something wrong. He tried to fly clear but the light hit him like a physical blow. His cells, so efficient at absorbing solar radiation, drank in this new energy automatically. And immediately began shutting down. His strength vanished. His flight ability failed. He dropped 15 feet into the chamber below and hit the floor hard, the first time in his life a fall had actually hurt. Above, the iris closed, sealing him in yellow light. Did you think I'd face you unprepared? Baal's voice came through speakers. I've spent weeks analyzing reports of your abilities. Solar-powered biology. Invulnerability through cellular density. Enhanced strength from radiation absorption. All very impressive. All very exploitable. Clark tried to stand but his muscles wouldn't respond properly. The yellow light was everywhere, oppressive, wrong. His vision was dimming despite his enhanced senses. What is this? Artificial light tuned to a very specific wavelength. Your biology is optimized for your native sun, which my scientists determined must emit a yellow spectrum based on your power levels under various stellar conditions. But introduce radiation from the red end of the spectrum, concentrated and sustained, and your cells begin attempting to process energy they're not designed for. It's poisoning you, farm boy. Slowly. Painfully. But definitely. Red sun radiation. Clark's mind, even clouded by the debilitating light, made the connection. His body evolved under a yellow sun. Built for those specific wavelengths. But red sunlight, his cells were trying to process it the same way, metabolize it, and failing. Like a human drinking salt water. The mechanism was there but the substance was toxic. I'm going to keep you here for a few hours, Baal continued conversationally. Let your power levels drop to manageable levels. Then we'll begin experiments. I'm very curious to understand how your biology functions. How to replicate it. Or failing that, how to weaponize it. Either way, you're mine now. And Earth will surrender to avoid orbital bombardment. A neat solution, don't you think? Clark's fingers scraped against metal flooring, trying to find purchase, to push himself up. But his strength was gone. He was just a man now, a very sick man surrounded by poison light. This was how he died. Not fighting. Not sacrificing himself heroically. Just trapped in a cage, slowly weakening, while a false god prepared to dissect him. Then Carter's voice crackled through the monitoring equipment. Clark, we're in position. Charges placed on the weapons manufacturing levels. We've located the prisoner labs, there are at least 50 humans being held for experimentation. Can you reach the extraction point? He tried to respond, managed only a weak cough. The red sun lamps were draining him faster than he'd anticipated. Already his healing was offline. His enhanced senses fading. Soon he'd be completely helpless. But SG-1 was here. In the fortress. Completing their mission while he lay trapped. Clark focused what remained of his will on the monitoring equipment, forced his vocal cords to work. Can't move. Trapped. Red sun, radiation. Powers, offline. Silence on the other end. Then O'Neill's voice, carrying a tone Clark had never heard from him, genuine fear. Can you survive it? Don't, no. Hold on. We're coming to you. No. Clark pushed the word out with effort. Mission. Prisoners. Intelligence. That's priority. Leave me. Like hell. O'Neill's voice was flat. Carter, where is he? 63 levels down, isolated chamber. But sir, if we divert to rescue Clark, we'll lose our window. Jaffa are already responding to our sabotage. We have maybe 10 minutes before this entire fortress locks down. Then we move fast. TLC, can you get us to level 63? There is a vertical transport shaft. But it will be heavily guarded. And if Clark is truly powerless, extracting him while under fire will be challenging. Challenging is our specialty. O'Neill's command decision was immediate. Daniel, get those prisoners to the extraction point. Use the chaos from our sabotage as cover. Carter, TLC, with me. We're getting Clark out. Jack, we can't carry an unconscious 200-pound man through a fortress under siege, Daniel protested. Watch me. O'Neill's tone carried absolute finality. Nobody gets left behind. Not on my watch. Through the yellow-red haze, Clark felt something he hadn't experienced in years, helplessness. He'd spent his entire adult life being the strong one, the protector, the one who could handle anything. Now he was the liability. The one who needed saving. Above, he heard explosions. Weapons fire. Shouting in Goa'uld and English. SG-1 was fighting their way to him. Abandoning their extraction window. Risking the entire mission. Because of him. The iris above opened suddenly. Jaffa warriors rappelled down, but not to attack. To defend. Staff weapons pointed upward at an unseen threat. Plasma fire exchanged. Bodies fell. And through the chaos, 3 figures descended on ropes with special forces efficiency. O'Neill landed first, P-90 sweeping the chamber. Carter and TLC followed, laying down covering fire. The Jaffa defenders went down under concentrated firepower, zapped, not killed, SG-1 maintaining their tactical restraint even now. Damn. O'Neill assessed Clark's condition with a combat medic's eye. Carter, can you shut off these lights? Working on it. She was already at the chamber's control panel, Goa'uld technology interfacing awkwardly with her Earth-built scanner. The power source is directly integrated. I'd need to destroy the entire system. So destroy it. Sir, if I blow the controls, we might trap ourselves down here. Then we blow them on the way out. Right now, priority 1 is getting Farm Boy mobile. O'Neill knelt beside Clark, checked his pulse, weak, thready, nothing like the superhuman vitality Fraser had documented. Kent, can you hear me? Yeah. Clark's voice was a whisper. You shouldn't have come. Shut up. We don't leave people behind. Can you walk? Can barely move. Then we carry you. TLC, help me get him up. The 2 men hauled Clark upright, supporting him between them. Even weakened, he massed more than a normal human, denser cellular structure didn't disappear just because his powers were offline. They staggered toward the chamber exit as Carter planted C4 on the red sun lamp array. The fortress shook with distant explosions. That's our sabotage going off, Carter reported. Weapons manufacturing is completely destroyed. Baal's production capabilities are crippled for months. Great. Now let's live to tell about it. O'Neill triggered his radio. Daniel, status? I've got the prisoners. 53 humans, various ages, all showing signs of experimentation. They're terrified but mobile. We're at extraction point Alpha, but Clark is with us. Stay put. We're inbound. They moved through corridors actively collapsing from sabotage damage, past Jaffa rushing to contain fires and system failures, up transport shafts while Clark's dead weight slowed them catastrophically. Twice they had to stop and fight, laying down covering fire while dragging an unconscious alien through hostile territory. This wasn't heroic. It was desperate. Ugly. Military operations at their most raw. Good people doing hard things because the alternative was abandoning someone. They reached level 32 when Baal's voice echoed through the fortress speakers. Very clever, Tauri. Destroy my weapons manufacturing. Free a few prisoners. But you're not leaving with my prize. I've sealed the fortress. No gates will dial out. No ships will approach. You're trapped. Bluffing, O'Neill muttered. Has to be bluffing. Detecting massive energy buildup around the fortress exterior, Carter warned, checking her scanner. He's erected some kind of shield. The Stargate is still accessible but, sir, without Clark's strength to tear through shields, we can't get past whatever Baal's put up. They emerged into the extraction point, a carved plaza on the fortress surface where the Stargate stood, now surrounded by 53 freed prisoners and Daniel standing guard with increasingly desperate expression. The space gate shimmered overhead, their escape route home. But between them and freedom, a golden barrier of force now enclosed the entire area. Ancient derived shield technology, adapted by the Goa'uld, powered by Naquata reactors deep in the fortress. Impenetrable to conventional weapons. The kind of shield Clark had battered through in orbit. When he had his powers. TLC and O'Neill set Clark down gently against the gate platform. He was barely conscious now, the red sun exposure having drained him completely. His skin was pallid, the first time anyone from SG-1 had seen him look actually vulnerable. Okay, O'Neill assessed their situation with military pragmatism. We're trapped in a System Lord's fortress, surrounded by shields we can't break, with 50 terrified prisoners and one powerless alien. Anyone got ideas? The Prometheus, Daniel suggested. Can they fire on the shield from orbit? Not without hitting us too, Carter replied. The shield's radius is too tight. And even if they could, Baal's fortress has orbital defense platforms that are still operational. The Prometheus would be destroyed before completing a single attack run. Above them, Baal's face appeared projected against the shield, massive, godlike, exactly the intimidation display the Goa'uld loved. Surrender, Tauri. Return my test subject and I'll allow the rest to live. Refuse, and I'll simply wait for your oxygen to run out. This shield is airtight. You have approximately 6 hours of breathable air remaining. O'Neill flipped off the projection. Yeah, well, we've survived worse odds. Have we? Daniel asked seriously. No. But seemed like the thing to say. Clark stirred, consciousness returning fractionally. His enhanced hearing, still barely functional, picked up whispered conversations among the freed prisoners. Fear. Gratitude for rescue. Resignation that they were all going to die here. He'd come to save people. Instead, he'd gotten them killed. No. Not acceptable. Clark forced his eyes open, focused on Carter. The shield. What's powering it? Naquata reactors in the fortress substructure. Why? If someone could get to them, overload them. The explosion would drop the shield but also potentially destroy this entire section of the fortress, Carter said carefully. It's suicide. For a human. But I'm not human. Get me to yellow sunlight. Powers come back. I can survive the explosion. Bring down the shield. You can barely stand, O'Neill protested. You're asking us to carry you to the reactors, expose you to sunlight, and then let you blow yourself up. It's the only way. It's insane. So was assaulting Tartarus. Worked, so far. TLC knelt beside Clark, his expression carrying warrior respect. If you do this, you may not survive. Naquadah reactor explosions are devastating. Even your invulnerability might not withstand it. Better than letting everyone die. Better than Baal winning. Clark managed to meet their eyes. I came, through that gate, looking for answers. About what? I found, something better. Found, people worth, fighting for. Clark, Daniel started. Do it. Please. Before I lose consciousness again. O'Neill was silent for a long moment, jaw tight. Then he made the command decision. Carter, plot the fastest route to the reactor levels. TLC, help me move him. Daniel, get these prisoners as far from the blast radius as possible. Jack, this is suicide, Daniel protested. Yeah. But it's his choice. And we respect that. They moved through the fortress again, this time descending toward the reactor cores that powered Baal's shields. The journey was agonizing, every step requiring superhuman effort from men carrying inhuman weight through hostile territory. They reached an exterior platform, a maintenance area with direct exposure to the fortress moon's thin atmosphere and, more importantly, the binary suns that lit this system. The moment Clark felt actual yellow sunlight touch his skin, something began changing. His cells, slowly, started remembering what they were designed for. Started processing real solar radiation instead of the toxic red spectrum. It wasn't instant, he'd been drained too thoroughly, but power was returning. Trickling back into a body that had been emptied. How long? O'Neill asked. Minutes. Maybe, 10. Need more time. Don't have 10 minutes. Baal will realize we've left the extraction point. He'll send Jaffa. Then, hold them off. Long as you can. SG-1 took defensive positions around the platform as Jaffa began emerging from corridors. Staff weapons fired. P-90s answered. Zatkin bolts. Grenades. The small platform became a war zone, 3 humans and a Jaffa defending an alien recharging in sunlight. Carter was hit. Zat fire catching her shoulder, dropping her. TLC took staff weapon impacts protecting Daniel. O'Neill burned through magazines, falling back step by step. And through it all, Clark felt his strength returning. Faster now. His cells drinking in yellow sun radiation like water after drought. His invulnerability reactivating. His senses sharpening. He stood. The Jaffa attacking faltered. The farm boy who'd been helpless minutes ago was glowing slightly, energy visibly radiating from his skin. His eyes, normal moments before, now carried an edge of something not quite human. Get to the extraction point, Clark said, voice strong again. I've got this. Clark, O'Neill started. Go. They went. Because sometimes you trusted the person with superpowers to do the impossible thing. Clark turned toward the fortress interior, toward the reactor cores that powered Baal's shields, and flew. Not with full power, he was still recovering, but with enough speed to matter. He crashed through levels, through security doors, through Jaffa formations, until he reached the reactor chamber. Massive Naquadah cores glowed with barely contained energy. Enough power to shield a fortress. Enough power, if released explosively, to level everything within a mile radius. Clark placed his hands on the reactor housing and began pulling. Crystals cracked. Containment failed. Alarms screamed warnings about imminent catastrophic failure. He triggered his radio one last time. SG-1. Shield will drop in, 30 seconds. Get everyone through the gate. Now. Clark, get out of there. O'Neill's voice was urgent. Can't. Need to, make sure. That Baal doesn't, stop the overload. Besides. Clark smiled despite everything. Someone has to stay behind. Make sure this false god remembers that Earth doesn't surrender. You stupid, brave, O'Neill's voice cut off. Then, quieter. It's been an honor, farm boy. Honor's mine. Colonel. The reactor's containment finally collapsed. Energy began cascading toward critical mass. Clark held on, using his returning strength to accelerate the process, ensuring the explosion would be devastating enough to drop the shield permanently. Above, through dozens of levels of metal and stone, his enhanced hearing picked up the Stargate activating. Heard SG-1 and the prisoners stepping through to safety. The reactor exploded. Clark had faced staff weapons. Vacuum. The full might of a System Lord's military. But nothing compared to the raw power of an Aquata reactor detonating at point-blank range. It was like being inside a star. Every cell screaming. His invulnerability tested beyond any limit. The explosion propagated upward, outward, destroying reactor cores, collapsing shield generators, tearing through 60 levels of Baal's fortress. The golden shield flickered and died. And in the heart of the blast, Clark Kent held on. Conscious. Burning. Refusing to die. Because Earth needed to know. Needed to understand. That false gods could bleed. That tyranny could be fought. That one person, if they chose to stand, could make a difference. The explosion finally dissipated. Clark floated in the ruins of the reactor chamber, his body scorched beyond recognition but already healing, drawing on the last reserves of solar energy and the sheer stubborn determination not to die here. He flew upward through the devastation, through collapsed corridors and shattered levels, until he emerged on the fortress surface. The Stargate stood intact, ancient technology too durable to destroy easily. The space gate overhead shimmered, still active, still offering escape. Clark approached it, each movement agony, each breath a victory. Behind him, what remained of Baal's fortress burned. The System Lord himself had surely survived, gold always did, hiding in secured bunkers with sarcophagi ready to resurrect even mortal wounds. But his fortress was crippled. His fleet destroyed. His weapons manufacturing gone. His prisoners freed. His reputation as an untouchable god shattered. Earth had sent its message. In fire. In defiance. In the person of an alien farm boy who refused to kneel. Clark stepped into the space gate and let it carry him home. Clark materialized through the Stargate at Stargate Command and collapsed immediately. His body, pushed beyond every conceivable limit, burned by reactor explosion, drained by red sun radiation, held together by nothing but will, finally surrendered to the physical toll. Medical teams swarmed forward as alarms blared through the facility. Dr. Fraser reached him first, scanner already active, her professional composure cracking at the readings. Get him to isolation. For fluids, full life support, and someone get those monitoring leads replaced, half of them melted through. They moved him on a gurney, though his mass made the effort comically difficult even with 6 personnel pushing. Through dimming consciousness, Clark registered familiar voices. O'Neill briefing Hammond. Carter explaining the mission's tactical success. Daniel advocating for the freed prisoners' care. TLC's quiet affirmation that Clark Kent had proven himself a warrior worthy of honor. The last thing he heard before darkness claimed him was Fraser's voice, equal parts exasperated and awed. His cellular regeneration is active despite catastrophic systemic damage. He's healing from an explosion that should have atomized him. I don't know how, but he's going to survive. Clark woke 72 hours later to sunlight streaming through a window, real sunlight, Earth's yellow sun, feeding his cells with the radiation they craved. His body had healed completely, the scorched tissue replaced, the drained energy reserves replenished. He felt stronger than before, as if surviving the impossible had somehow enhanced what he was capable of. Fraser entered his recovery room carrying a tablet. Welcome back. You've been unconscious for 3 days while your biology put itself back together. How do you feel? Hungry. Exhausted. Alive. Clark sat up slowly, noting the 4 lines had been removed. His enhanced healing made them unnecessary once his powers reactivated. The mission? The prisoners? Complete success. We liberated 53 humans from Baal's laboratories. Destroyed his weapons manufacturing capabilities. Retrieved intelligence on his fleet movements and System Lord alliances. And, she smiled slightly, you personally disabled 3 Hatak vessels and crippled his primary fortress. The Takare are calling it the most successful strike against a System Lord in 2,000 years. What about Baal himself? Alive, unfortunately. Goa'uld are hard to kill permanently. But according to Takare intelligence, his reputation among the System Lords has been devastated. He claimed you were an unstoppable weapon worth any cost to acquire. Instead, you proved he was vulnerable. Other System Lords are already moving against his weakened territories. The threat of invasion against Earth has been postponed indefinitely while Baal fights to maintain his power base. Clark absorbed that. He'd wanted to help. To make a difference. The cost had been nearly dying, but the result, Earth was safe, at least for now. Prisoners freed. A tyrant's power diminished. You have visitors, Fraser said. General Hammond and SG-1. They've been waiting for you to wake up. Feel up to a debrief? Yeah. Let them in. Hammond entered first, his bearing formal but his expression carrying something like paternal pride. SG-1 followed, O'Neill with his characteristic casual stance masking military assessment, Carter with her tablet full of scientific data, Daniel adjusting his glasses nervously, and TLC with the composed dignity of a warrior recognizing a peer. Mr. Kent, Hammond began. What you accomplished at Tartarus goes beyond any military operation in Stargate command history. You faced a System Lord in his own fortress, survived conditions that would have killed anyone else, and sacrificed yourself to ensure your team's escape. That's the definition of heroism. I just did what needed doing, General. That's what makes it heroic. Hammond's tone carried weight. Clark, I'm authorized to offer you a permanent position with the Stargate program. Official designation as SG-1 Specialist Asset, full security clearance, military pay grade commensurate with your capabilities, and access to all resources necessary to help you understand your origins. Earth needs people like you. People willing to stand against tyranny. What do you say? Clark looked at the faces around him. This team that had trusted him with only days of acquaintance. That had risked everything to save him when he was powerless. That represented humanity at its best, flawed, determined, willing to fight for something larger than themselves. I say yes, General. On one condition. Name it. I'm not a weapon to be deployed. I'm part of the team. I follow Colonel O'Neill's command, work with Major Carter's science, learn from TLC's experience, and listen to Daniel's cultural perspective. I'm strongest when working with others. That's what I learned at Tartarus. Agreed. Hammond extended his hand. Clark shook it carefully, still adjusting to his returned strength. Welcome to SG-1, Mr. Kent. Officially. O'Neill stepped forward with a small box. Since you're officially on the team now, figured you'd need this. He opened it to reveal a set of dog tags. They read, Kent, Clark/SG-1 Specialist/Earth Defense. Earth Defense, Clark read aloud. Not United States. You're defending the planet, not one country, O'Neill explained. Plus, the paperwork for an alien to join the US military was giving the Pentagon lawyers aneurysms. So we created a new designation. You're the first. Probably won't be the last as we make more alien allies. Carter was practically vibrating with scientific excitement. Clark, the data from your exposure to red sun radiation is fascinating. Your cellular response suggests your biology is optimized for specific stellar wavelengths. With your permission, I'd like to continue studying your abilities, not as a test subject, but as a collaborative research project. Understanding how you process solar energy could revolutionize our power systems, shield technology, maybe even medical treatments. I'm willing to help however I can, Major. As long as we're working together. Daniel approached more hesitantly. I've made progress on translating your pod symbology. The language structure is incredibly complex, but I think I've identified what might be a name for your homeworld. Would you like to know? Clark's breath caught. His origins. His people. Everything he'd come through the Stargate seeking. The answer was finally within reach. Yes. Tell me. The symbol that appears most frequently, the one you arrived with, the shield with the S, I believe it translates to a concept meaning, hope. And the world it's associated with is called Krypton. The word resonated through Clark with profound recognition. Krypton. His homeworld. The civilization that had sent him through the Stargate as their world died. The people who'd given their last son a chance at life among the stars. Krypton, he repeated softly. Is it, do we know if it still exists? Daniel's expression turned sorrowful. The gate address associated with your pod doesn't connect. It's possible the Stargate there was destroyed. Or. He hesitated. Or the planet itself might not exist anymore. I'm sorry, Clark. The grief was surprisingly sharp despite never knowing the world. His parents, his birth parents, had sent him away to save him from some catastrophe. They'd succeeded. He was alive, thriving even, on a world that had welcomed him despite his differences. But Krypton was gone. His people were gone. He was the last. Then I'll honor their memory, Clark said quietly. By using what they gave me, this biology, these abilities, to protect others. To make sure fewer people have to lose their worlds. That's what the symbol means, right? Hope. I'll be that. For Earth. For anyone who needs it. TLC placed a hand on Clark's shoulder with surprising gentleness. You have found what many search for their entire lives, purpose. And you have found it among people worthy of your loyalty. This is no small thing. Indeed, Clark said, managing a slight smile at using TLC's characteristic word. The Jaffa's eyebrow raised fractionally, the closest thing to humor his stoic expression allowed. Indeed. Over the following weeks, Clark integrated fully into Stargate Command. He underwent training with SG teams, learning military tactics and communication protocols. He worked with Carter on controlled power tests, helping her understand Kryptonian biology while she introduced him to ancient technology and Earth's scientific progress. He studied with Daniel, translating more of his pod's inscriptions, learning about the civilization that had built something capable of crossing galaxies. And he sparred with TLC, the Jaffa teaching him that power without discipline was merely strength, while Clark demonstrated that even symbiote-enhanced warriors could be surprised by Kryptonian speed. The freed prisoners from Tartarus were relocated, given new lives on Earth or allied worlds. Many chose to stay, wanting to help the planet that had saved them. They spoke of the flying man who'd torn through a fortress to rescue them, and the story spread through the Gate network, whispered in markets on distant worlds, shared in Jaffa camps, analyzed in Takare councils. Earth's protector. The one who could challenge system lords. The symbol of hope in a galaxy that had known mostly tyranny. Baal's threatened invasion never materialized. The System Lord was too busy defending his territories from rivals who sensed weakness. The Takare reported that other System Lords viewed Earth with new wariness, not just for its ancient technology or Asgard protection, but because it harbored something unprecedented. Something that could fight back. 6 weeks after Tartarus, Clark stood in the gate room as SG-1 prepared for another mission. They were investigating an ancient outpost on P4X-639, hoping to find more information about the Ancients' relationship with other advanced races. Maybe, O'Neill had suggested, they'd find references to Krypton. To the civilization that had mastered technology even the Ancients hadn't achieved. "Ready, Kent?" O'Neill asked, checking his P-90. Clark wore modified BDUs designed to withstand his missions, reinforced material that wouldn't burn away quite so easily. His dog tags hung around his neck. His GDO transmitter was secured to his vest. He was part of the team now. Officially. Completely. "Ready, Colonel." The Stargate activated. Chevrons locked. The wormhole established with that familiar shimmer of infinite possibility. SG-1 stepped through together. For humans who'd learned to trust each other through impossible situations. And one Kryptonian who'd found something better than answers about his past, he'd found a future worth fighting for. On worlds throughout the galaxy, stories were already being told. Of the Tauri who challenged gods. Of the team that stood together against tyranny. Of the last son of Krypton who'd chosen Earth as his home and its people as his family. The Goa'uld claimed divinity through stolen power and ancient lies. But Earth had something more powerful, people willing to stand together, to fight for each other, to prove that real strength came not from domination but from choice. Clark Kent had come through the Stargate looking for answers about what he was. He'd found something infinitely more valuable, a purpose that mattered, people who believed in him, and a symbol that would shine across the galaxy for as long as tyranny needed opposing. Hope. Not just a word on an alien shield. A promise. That the universe could be better. That false gods could fall. That one person, standing with others, could make a difference. The Stargate stood ready. Thousands of worlds waited beyond. Each one a potential ally, a threat to face, or a population that needed defending. And Earth's flagship team, now including an alien farm boy who could fly, was ready to explore them all. Because that's what hope meant. What Earth meant. What SG-1 represented. Never surrender. Never stop fighting. Never let the powerful crush the weak. And always, always, bring everyone home. Clark Kent, last son of Krypton, first defender of Earth, stepped through the Stargate into another mission, another world, another chance to prove that the symbol on his chest meant something. His story was just beginning. The galaxy would learn what hope looked like when it refused to kneel. Hit the subscribe button for more amazing stories.